Chapter 770. June of year 3787, it was just a normal summer for the other countries of the signs, but for the Principality of Constantine in the southwest corner of the continent, it was a very turbulent month. It was even possible that it would leave a deep mark in the history of the duchy. In the beginning of June, the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce was strongly opposed by over 10 lords in the duchy because of their magic signal towers. They announced that they were cutting off their cooperation with these lords, causing the private territories of these lords to fall into chaos, as well as causing panic among the citizens of the duchy that weren't related to this. Everyone was very worried that if the new flyer gave up on investing in the Principality of Constantine, it would have a serious impact on the entire duchy. In the middle of the month, the Speaker of the Congress of the Principality of Constantine, Anclo, suddenly announced that he was resigning from the position of Speaker. The public explanation was that he had already been the Speaker for 3 years and according to the Constitution of the Congress, he had already finished his first term. Because of his health, he didn't plan on continuing. This news created a large shock to the Principality of Constantine. Although the Principality of Constantine's rapid development was mainly because of the new flyer's investment, the Congress led by Anclo played an important role that couldn't be ignored. In the hearts of many citizens of the Principality of Constantine, he had already become the most important leader that led the Principality of Constantine to become stronger. Now that he had suddenly announced his resignation, many people were worried about the fate of the Principality of Constantine. Would his successor be able to lead the Principality of Constantine to develop at a high speed like him? No one could give an accurate answer to this. Although the Congress was already prepared for Anclo's resignation, announcing a new speaker on the day of his resignation. It was a viscount from the northern part of the Principality of Constantine who wasn't that famous. Without the test of time, no one knew how far this new speaker could go. However, when everyone was doubting this speaker announced a very shocking decision as soon as he took office. He announced the abolition of the private territories of the nobles in the Principality of Constantine. Once this news was spread, it didn't just shock everyone in the Principality of Constantine, it also shocked the people of the surrounding countries. Since ancient times, it was a tradition for nobles to have private territories in the signs. As a noble, if they only had status and no territory, they were no different from an empty shell in everyone's eyes. This was because the foundation of the nobles was their private territories. Private fiefs could provide the nobles with the food, population, and economy they needed, and then form the most important aspect of their strength. If they didn't even have private territories, what strength did they have? In any country in the signs, all nobles' first priority was their private territories. They would treat their private territories as their bottom line. Depriving them of their private land was tantamount to declaring war on them. Therefore, when everyone heard that this new speaker wanted to pass this decision, their first reaction was that this speaker was crazy. He actually wanted to pass such a ridiculous decision. That was simply a fantasy. Just when everyone wanted to see this speaker make a fool of himself, the result greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. The Congress of the Principality of Constantine actually passed this inconceivable decision. The Principality of Constantine officially abolished the right of all nobles to own private territories. While countless people were shocked by this, they all turned their gazes to New Flyer. New Flyer was undoubtedly the company with the greatest influence on the Principality of Constantine. Their chairman, Sui, was currently one of the great nobles in the Principality of Constantine. The private territories under his name spanned several dozen square kilometers. The Congress passed the resolution to abolish private territories. How would Lord Sui react? Would he be willing to hand over his precious private territories? It had to be known that New Flyer's main base was built on his private territories. If he handed over his private territories, what would happen to New Flyer? Everyone thought that Sui would definitely refuse to implement this decision, but reality once again exceeded everyone's expectations. The day after the Congress passed this decision, Sui was the first to publicly announce that he would hand over the ownership of his private territories and return them to the duchy's control. Then at the same time, Sui represented the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to the Congress to buy the land around the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main base, totaling over 50 square kilometers, which was passed by Congress. After this news came out, everyone was suddenly enlightened. No wonder this unremarkable new speaker had the guts to propose such a shocking decision and pass it through the Congress. From the looks of it, this was done with the support of New Flyer. Or to put it more bluntly, this new speaker must have obtained the support of New Flyer to ascend to the position of speaker. He represented the will of the New Flyer. The previous abdication of Speaker Anklo was, of course, related to New Flyer. This made people even more puzzled about the situation in the Principality of Constantine. What was New Flyer trying to do? If Sui only wanted a larger private territory, then even if he was rejected by the Congress, it shouldn't be a problem for him to achieve this goal after the new speaker was replaced. Why did he have to come up with such a shocking resolution? Stripping all the nobles of their private territories was simply a declaration of war against all the nobles in the Principality of Constantine. How could those nobles obediently carry out such a resolution? This was indeed the case. After the Congress passed the resolution and Sui took the lead in carrying it out, there were countless fierce reactions in the Principality of Constantine. The 4 counts, 7 viscounts, and dozens of barons in the southern part of the Principality announced that they would not accept the resolution of the Congress. They also publicly declared that they would no longer accept the leadership of the Congress and would implement self-governance in their own territories. This was almost the same as declaring independence in everyone's eyes. The Congress of the Principality of Constantine would never accept such a fact. The only problem was how to deal with it. These nobles had a considerable number of troops under their names. The Congress of the Principality of Constantine didn't have a specific military background and couldn't do anything to them. But at this moment the New Flyer made its move. At the end of June, the Congress of the Principality of Constantine announced that the 4 counts, 7 viscounts, and dozens of barons who had rejected the leadership of the Congress were traitors, and decided to launch a punitive expedition against them. Then the Congress announced that they would invite the New Flyer Guards to act as the temporary Congress Guards and launch a punitive expedition against these nobles. Everyone was in an uproar at this. By doing this, the Congress of the Principality of Constantine made it clear that they were completely under the control of the New Flyer. Everything they did was probably in the service of the New Flyer. But even though everyone understood this, it didn't affect the actions of the New Flyer at all. At the end of June, the New Flyer Guards were officially mobilized. It only took a week for them to completely defeat the nobles who had been declared traitors. During the entire process, the troops of the nobles who had also purchased a large number of military magic machines from the New Flyer were unable to pose any threat to the New Flyer Guard. They had no power to resist at all. After completely defeating these rebellious nobles, the Congress unceremoniously took back the private territories of these nobles. At this point, everyone understood that before they had the strength to contend against the New Flyer, they could only obediently follow orders. Thus, after this, the other nobles in the Principality of Constantine expressed their obedience to the Congress's decision and handed over the ownership of their private territories. However, just like how they treated Suyi's private territories, although these nobles handed over the ownership of their private territories, the Congress also approved them to invest in a portion of the land. They also reserved a small piece of land for them to directly sell as their private property. This small piece of land was actually not much different from the private territories they had before. It was only different in name, but because the area was too small, it could at most be used to build private manors. It wouldn't have much of an impact. On the last day of June, the Congress of the Principality of Constantine took back the ownership of the private territories handed over by the last nobles. It also announced that from this day onwards, there would be no more nobles in the Principality of Constantine. Although there were still nobles, they no longer had their own territories. What they retained were some insignificant aristocratic privileges. Of course, the Congress only took back the ownership of their private territories and didn't take back the various industries under their names. They still owned the rubber plantations, water orchards, and various factories under their names and could still enjoy all the profit. All the nobles who obeyed the Congress's decision also received the forgiveness of the new flyer and regained the opportunity to continue cooperating with the new flyer. Therefore, after the turbulent June passed and they entered July, everyone realized that compared to the Principality of Constantine before, there weren't many changes in the Principality of Constantine apart from a new president and the nobles losing their private territories. The nobles were still enjoying their luxurious lives with the large number of industries under their names, while the commoners were still working hard to improve their lives. However, everyone was clear that the Principality of Constantine was indeed completely different from before. At this moment, a few special guests quietly arrived at the Principality of Constantine, which didn't seem to have changed at all. Chapter 771. 7 different colored magic sedans were in a row, quickly driving on the road to the Principality of Constantine's new flight commerce main base. Even in the Principality of Constantine, where the magic sedans came from, magic sedans weren't commonly seen because of their high price. So being able to see a motorcade of 7 magic sedans at once was very eye-catching for everyone. But when people noticed the signs on the back of the 7 magic sedans, they felt that it was very strange. Because the signs on the 7 magic sedans said that they came from the Drake Duchy that was over 1,000 kilometers away. If it was said that normal families in the surrounding countries could barely afford a magic sedan after saving up, those who could afford 7 magic sedans could only be rich nobles or large merchants. And these 7 magic sedans came from the Drake Duchy. Didn't that mean that the people in these 7 magic sedans were all important people from the Drake Duchy? It should be said that people's guesses weren't wrong, but they weren't completely accurate. There were important people from the Drake Duchy in these 7 magic sedans, but there were also important people who didn't come from the Drake Duchy. The Marquis of Southgard looked away from the car and said to Princess Caroline beside him with a sigh of praise, "Your Highness, when you described the Principality of Constantine to me before, I thought that you were exaggerating a bit. But now that I've seen these shocking facts, I feel that not only are you not exaggerating, you're rather conservative. I have to admit, the Principality of Constantine is completely different from any country I've seen on the continent. Other than Banta City that we passed by 3 days ago, there isn't a place on the continent that can compare to this place." Princess Caroline revealed a smile that was as beautiful as a flower as she said with a nod, "Of course. Banta City was where the new flyer came from, so it being able to become like this is completely because of the new flyer, or rather because of Su Yi's influence. This place is where the new flyer took root and developed for 5 years, so naturally it would be influenced by the new flyer and Su Yi." The Marquis of Southgard turned to look out the window and gave a sigh. "Actually, to be honest, I don't know what these things represent. For example, that tall iron tower in the distance, I don't know what use it has. But I'm certain that these are the shocking inventions of the new flyer. They can bring amazing convenience to people's lives." The new flyer's shocking places are not limited to just this, Princess Caroline replied with a smile. She followed Marquis Southgate's gaze and saw the tall iron tower in the distance, but she couldn't help being surprised. "What is the use of this iron tower?" the Marquis of Southgard asked in a surprised Caroline, "What? Even your Highness doesn't know what it does?" Princess Caroline shook her head, her face full of doubt. "I don't know. I've never seen this thing before. It seems to be a new invention of the new flyer." Sue always has some strange ideas in his head, and he has so many crazy researchers under him. It's not strange for him to have some new inventions that I don't know about. The Marquis of Southgard nodded. He glanced at the iron tower in the distance, and then looked away, looking at the scenery on both sides of the road. A month ago, the Marquis of Southgard and Princess Caroline met by chance in Filio's city. The Marquis of Southgard immediately revealed his identity to Princess Caroline and received a warm welcome from her. When the Marquis of Southgard mentioned that he wanted to know more about the new flyer and the magic machines of the new flyer, Princess Caroline directly proposed to the Marquis of Southgard to come with her to the Principality of Constantine and see for himself what the new flyer was like. The Marquis of Southgard gladly agreed to this proposal. After some preparations, he brought Seymour and his followers to follow Princess Caroline from the Drake Duchy. On the way, other than Princess Caroline introducing the new flyer to the Marquis of Southgard from time to time, there were all kinds of strange things that they saw along the way. This made the Marquis of Southgard even more interested in the new flyer. Whether it was the various agricultural magic machines in the fields on both sides of the road, the powerful magic machines that far surpassed the power of man, or the various household magic machines that could be seen in every household of the Lampari kingdom, they all proved to the Marquis of Southgard that the new flyer had an influence on the Lampari kingdom, as well as the convenience brought by the various magic machines. When their group passed by Banta City, they specially stopped for 3 days. Because Banta City was where the new flyer originated from, to this day Banta City could be considered the city that had been influenced the most by the new flyer. In the 3 days that they were in Banta City, the Marquis of Southgard had secretly investigated many places. He had a deeper understanding of the changes that the new flyer had brought to Banta City, while at the same time, it made his praise for the new flyer even deeper. When they entered the Principality of Constantine, the Marquis of Southgard even felt that he had come to a different world. If Banta City still had the traditional style of the signs, then the Principality of Constantine, that was extremely backward, was like a piece of white paper. With the influence of the new flyer, it had become a completely different world from any other place on the continent. Even if it was his first day here, the Marquis of Southgard could deeply feel that this new world was much better than the traditional cities of the signs, no matter how he looked at it. Not mentioning anything else, just based on the clean and refreshing tap water that he could enjoy along the way, it was enough to make all the cities on the continent feel inferior. This was something that even the capital of the Mala Empire, Angelo City, couldn't compare to. Although as the respected Sir Marquis, the Marquis of Southgard didn't need to worry about the water in his manor, as Sir Marquis who cared about the lives of the citizens, he knew that it was difficult for the citizens to use water. The Principality of Constantine had solved the problem of water for the citizens through the automatic water supply system. To the Marquis of Southgard, this was simply an incomparable good deed. Compared to this, those household magic machines that could make people's lives more convenient were much inferior. Other than this, the other thing that the Marquis of Southgard cared about the most was the road that they were currently on. When he drove the rented magic sedan on the road in the Drake Duchy for the first time, he was certain of this. This road had a large effect on the traffic of the entire country. It was something that had a great strategic significance. Although the road was paved by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, the Marquis of Southgard had heard from various sources that the construction materials and magic machines needed to pave the road all came from the new flyer. This meant that the 2 things that he cared about the most were related to the new flyer. This was why he decided to take a trip to the Principality of Constantine and personally see the new flyer. Sir Marquis, if nothing unexpected happens, we should be able to see Sue in 2 hours. Have you thought about what you want to ask him? Princess Caroline suddenly asked. The Marquis of Southgard was silent for a bit before saying with a faint smile, "There are many things that I want to ask him. If possible, I hope that I can stay here for a bit longer and talk to Chairman Su as much as possible. Your Highness, I hope that you can help me with this. Princess Caroline pursed her lips into a smile. Relax, if that fellow Su-yi knows your identity, he will definitely be happy. Even if you don't say it, he would want to talk to you more. Rather, I have to remind you that that fellow is very cunning, so don't be fooled by him. The Marquis of Southgard immediately smiled and shot a glance at Princess Caroline. He couldn't help but ask, Your Highness, your relationship with Chairman Su seems to be very close? Princess Caroline's face flushed red, and she replied with a light smile, If I didn't know him later than his wife, I would definitely do anything to become his wife. Unfortunately, I met him later, and he's a man with his own principles. He isn't willing to give me the slightest chance. But this is what I like about him. Oh! The Marquis of Southgard was a bit surprised. Your Highness, you're so beautiful, yet Chairman Su isn't moved by you? Princess Caroline shrugged helplessly. Although I'm not convinced, I have to admit that his wife isn't any worse than me. Is that so? The Marquis of Southgard looked pensive. After thinking for a bit, he said with a smile, If that's the case, trying to tempt Chairman Su with your beauty won't be possible? That might not be the case. Princess Caroline shook her head and said, This fellow originally had 3 beautiful female slaves, and he already took 2 of them into his room. From what I know, he also got 2 more female slaves last year, and he also married a beautiful elven woman. So, if you say that he isn't tempted by beauty, that doesn't seem to be accurate. An elven woman? The Marquis of Southgard was truly shocked this time. Is this true? He actually married an elven woman? How is that possible? This was the most sensational thing in the surrounding countries last year. Haven't you heard of it before? Princess Caroline asked in return. I haven't. I've mainly been asking about magic machines. I don't really care about Chairman Su's personal life. Actually, I feel that Su-yi himself is far more worthy of attention than New Flyer. The reason why New Flyer was able to grow into such a company is all because of Su-yi's existence. From what I see, he's even more important than the entire New Flyer. Princess Caroline's expression was a bit complicated, but she didn't seem to hesitate at all. The Marquis of Southgard thought for a bit, and his expression became serious. Then, Your Highness, before I meet Chairman Su, can I trouble you to introduce Chairman Su to me? Princess Caroline smiled faintly. All right. Let's start with his personality. From what I understand of him, although he's always flaunted himself as a standard merchant, he's actually a very idealistic fellow. Chapter 772. Princess Caroline's introduction to Su-yi only lasted for half an hour. When the motorcade was about to enter the New Flight Commerce main base, they were unexpectedly blocked. Seeing a specially modified magic sedan blocking the road in front of them with 2 men in uniform standing beside it, Princess Caroline and the Marquis of Southgard looked at each other with doubtful looks. This fire-red magic sedan was clearly the one Seymour had bought in Filio City. When they were heading to the Principality of Constantine from Black Rice City on the Black Rice Wasteland, Seymour had obediently followed the motorcade at first, but before they were halfway there, he couldn't control himself and left the motorcade. He would speed up from time to time, wildly charging on the road to break away from the motorcade. Because the road from Black Rice City to the Principality of Constantine was simple, they didn't need to worry about him getting lost. Adding in the fact that he had practiced driving during this time, the Marquis of Southgard just let him go and didn't want to restrict him too much. But now he was being stopped. Why was this? Princess Caroline looked at the 2 young men in uniform and slightly knit her brows. These 2 are the security officers of the Principality of Constantine. It seems like Viscount Seymour might have done something wrong. Security officers? The Marquis of Southgard looked at the 2 young men in surprise before having the driver drive over. The motorcade stopped beside Seymour's fire-red magic sedan. Seymour, who had been sitting in the driver's seat with a look of disdain, quickly opened the door and dodged the 2 security officers as he charged over. "Uncle Dalen, these 2 fellows actually dared to block my car. I will definitely teach them a lesson." The Marquis of Southgard's face sunk, and he looked at him with an unkind gaze before looking at Princess Caroline with a questioning look. Princess Caroline was silent for a bit before saying with a nod, "Sir Marquis, let me take care of this." "All right." Princess Caroline got out of the car and walked over to the 2 security officers. The 2 security officers had angry looks on their faces, but when they saw Princess Caroline get out of the car, they were shocked by her appearance and were stunned for a while. "2 security officers, hello." Princess Caroline revealed a sweet smile. She turned to point at Seymour behind her and asked, "Can I ask why you are stopping my friend? Did he break some rules?" The 2 security officers who had been looking at Princess Caroline in a daze at first immediately came back to their senses when they heard her question. One of them, who was a bit fatter, gave a cough and quickly calmed down before saying with a serious look, "This lady, your friend, he broke the rules of the road when he drove the magic sedan and hit another medium public transport magic car. After the accident, your friend didn't wait to be dealt with. Instead, he ran away. Now, according to the relevant regulations, we must take him back for investigation. Hit and run." Princess Caroline deeply knit her brows. She turned to look at Seymour before turning to the Marquis of Southgard with an awkward look. The Marquis of Southgard saw the look on her face and came over. Did something happen? The Marquis of Southgard had been in a high position for a long time, so naturally he had a dignified aura. The 2 security officers were quite knowledgeable, so they could tell that he wasn't a normal person with a single glance. They didn't dare neglect him and explained what had happened to him. After hearing this, the Marquis of Southgard's face sunk. He turned to look at Seymour and after thinking for a bit, he said to the 2 security officers, "The 2 of you, this is my nephew's fault. I will sincerely apologize to the passengers in that car on his behalf. I am also willing to compensate the passengers who were injured because of this matter, so they will definitely be satisfied." The Marquis of Southgard waved to one of his followers behind him. The follower didn't say anything and took out a bulging money pouch from his bosom and handed it over. "There are 100 gold coins inside. I think it should be enough to compensate the passengers." The 2 security officers looked at the money pouch and then looked at the Marquis of Southgard with a look of surprise. The Marquis of Southgard smiled and said, "Don't be surprised. In order to express my sincere apology, 100 gold coins isn't much." He didn't notice that Princess Caroline had an extremely strange look on her face after hearing this. The 2 security officers also had strange looks on their faces. After looking at each other, the fat security officer coughed lightly and said to the Marquis of Southgard, "This, Mister, do you think 100 gold coins is a lot of compensation?" The Marquis of Southgard was stunned. "Is it not a lot? From your description, most of the passengers only suffered minor injuries. Only one of them had a fracture. I think 100 gold coins is more than enough to compensate for their losses." After a pause, he continued, "Well, if 100 gold coins isn't enough, then I can add on another 50 gold coins. As for my nephew, because we still have urgent matters to attend to, it's not convenient for you to take him back for investigation." The slightly fat security officer smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Mister, I have to tell you that not to mention 100 gold coins, or even 150 gold coins, even 500 gold coins wouldn't be enough to compensate for the losses your nephew caused in this incident. Moreover, according to the regulations, we have to take him back for investigation. Please cooperate." The Marquis of Southgard's eyes widened in surprise. 500 gold coins isn't enough. How is that possible? 500 gold coins is enough to buy 10 strong slaves. The slightly fat security officer frowned. "Mister, you aren't a person of our Principality of Constantine, are you? Let me tell you, Our Principality of Constantine doesn't have any slaves right now, so your comparison isn't appropriate. Moreover, to be honest with you, 500 gold coins really isn't considered a large amount. The injured passengers of the public transport magic car, I'm certain that each of them can earn at least 200 gold coins a year. With so many people injured and adding in the damage to the magic car, the losses are far from just 500 gold coins. Each person can earn 200 gold coins a year? The Marquis of Southgard was completely shocked. Is this possible? Aren't they just normal citizens? Princess Caroline on the side couldn't keep watching. She gave a cough and took a step forward, saying to the two security officers in a low voice, "Two sirs, to be honest, these two are guests of the new Flyers Chairman Sue, so I hope that you can make an exception. As for the compensation, no matter how much it is, we will pay for it." After saying this, Princess Caroline took out a gold bill from her chest and handed it over. "Here's 1,000 gold coins. This is 1,000 gold coins. If it's not enough, you can contact me through the Frestec Chamber of Commerce at any time." After pausing, perhaps she felt that her empty words wouldn't have any effect, so Princess Caroline hesitated a bit before continuing. "I am Princess Caroline from the Drake Duchy. I think that you should have heard of my name." The two security officers' eyes popped out as they shouted in disbelief. "So you are Princess Caroline? No wonder you're this beautiful. God! I actually saw Princess Caroline with my own eyes. I really am too lucky." Princess Caroline revealed a faint smile. "Many thanks for your praise. Then may I ask the two of you, can we leave first? Chairman Sue should be waiting for us right now. As for how to deal with this matter, you can contact us through the new flyer at any time." The two security officers looked at each other before the slightly fatter one pulled the other security officer aside. The two of them went to the side and whispered a few words. After a while, the slightly fatter security officer came back and said to Princess Caroline, "Your Highness, please wait for a moment. We are trying to contact Chairman Sue and have him decide how to deal with this matter." "Contact Chairman Sue?" Princess Caroline knit her brows. "Isn't this place still a bit far from the new Flight Commerce main base? Then wouldn't we have to wait here for a long time?" "Sorry." The slightly fatter security officer smiled, but didn't show any signs of accommodating. Seeing their resolute attitude, Princess Caroline could only helplessly accept. She walked back to the Marquis of Southgard's side. "Sir Marquis, I'm very sorry. Let's wait here for a bit. They are trying to contact Chairman Sue." "How can we contact Chairman Sue from here? If we send someone back, won't it take a long time?" The Marquis of Southgard clearly thought of the same problem as Princess Caroline. "Uncle Daelin, why should we listen to them and wait here? We can just leave. Don't tell me they really dare to make a move on us?" Seymour came over and said without a care. "Shut up." The Marquis of Southgard angrily rebuked him, but he couldn't say anything more. After all, Seymour was only the son of his old friend, not his own son. He couldn't scold him as he pleased. After thinking about it, he could only nod and say, "All right, we are guests after all. We still have to respect Chairman Sue as the host. This is also good. Perhaps through dealing with this matter, we can deepen our mutual understanding with Chairman Sue." Seeing the trace of a smile on the Marquis of Southgard's lips, Princess Caroline's heart trembled slightly. Sue had always hoped to be able to promote New Flyer's magic machines to the entire continent. The Canla Empire and the Mala Empire were the two most important parts of this. New Flyer's progress in the Canla Empire had not been very smooth. Now that it had coincidentally received the attention of the Marquis of Southgard from the Mala Empire, there was an opportunity to promote New Flyer's products to the Mala Empire. If Sue didn't handle this matter well, it would cause the Marquis of Southgard to be dissatisfied. It would affect the Marquis of Southgard's evaluation of New Flyer and Sue, which would hinder the entry of New Flyer's products into the Mal Empire. Sue, you have to properly grasp this chance. Seeing the Marquis of Southgard calming down and sitting in the magic sedan, she looked at the impatient Seymour on the side, and Princess Caroline secretly prayed in her heart. Chapter 773. The three of them did not have to wait for long. A few minutes later, the slightly thinner public security officer walked over and handed a small and delicate plastic and metal box to Princess Caroline. "Your Highness, Sir Chairman wishes to speak with you." Princess Caroline glanced at the plastic and metal box in the public security officer's hands in surprise. She took it and frowned slightly. "Hey, Chairman Su. Since you can use the magic communicator to talk to me, you shouldn't be far from here. Hurry up and help me deal with this. The two guests are getting impatient from waiting." The Marquis of Southgard and Seymour looked at Princess Caroline in surprise. Why was she talking to a small box? Could it be that Chairman Su could jump out of the box? The next moment, a man's voice suddenly sounded from the small and delicate box. It was full of energy, but it was also slightly deep and steady. "Hey, Caroline. You're wrong about that. I'm currently over 70 kilometers away from your current location." Princess Caroline was stunned. More than 70 kilometers? How is that possible? The furthest range of your magic communicator is less than 5 kilometers, right? A burst of hearty laughter sounded from the small box. "Haha, this is a technology that we've recently developed. It can extend the range of the magic communicator to an extremely long distance. Although it can't cover the entire Principality of Constantine, it's not a problem to reach your current location from here." "It's that amazing?" Princess Caroline turned her head and looked at the magic communicator next to her ear. She muttered, then raised her voice slightly. "All right, I know that new flyer always comes up with some amazing things. But that's not important right now. What's important is that you should deal with this matter immediately." The magic communicator was silent for a moment. Then, Su Yi's slightly lowered voice sounded. "Caroline, although they're guests that you've brought over, rules are rules. Since they've violated the rules, and even caused serious consequences, we'll have to follow the rules. There's no need to bend the rules." Princess Caroline was greatly surprised by Su Yi's reply. She shot a glance at the Marquis of Southgard and Seymour, who were looking at them from not too far away. She lowered her voice and said somewhat anxiously, "Su Yi, are you crazy? Do you know where these two guests came from? One of them was Lord Marquis of the Mal Empire. Haven't you always wanted to promote new flyers products to the Mal Empire? It just so happens that the Marquis of Southgard is very interested in your new flyer. This is a great opportunity. How could you offend him and miss this opportunity?" "Mal Empire? Marquis of Southgard?" Su Yi's voice revealed his uncontrollable astonishment. "That's really surprising. No wonder you said that you've brought me two special guests. Now you know, right? Then why don't you think about how to deal with this matter properly? Let me tell you, the guy who caused this trouble is the son of an old friend of the Marquis of Southgard. His old friend also holds a high position in the Malor Empire. You're so smart, you don't need me to remind you what to do, right?" There was a bit of silence in the magic communicator before Su Yi's strange voice came from it. "All right, Caroline. Give the magic communicator to the Marquis of Southgard. Let me talk to him." "Okay." Princess Caroline turned and walked towards the Marquis of Southgard, handing the magic communicator over. "Lord Marquis, Chairman Su wants to talk to you." "Oh." The Marquis of Southgard looked at the small and exquisite magic communicator with interest, and asked, "What is this? You can actually talk to Chairman Su through it?" This is the first generation of communication magic machine developed by New Flyer. It's temporarily called the Magic Communicator. You can also call it a mobile phone because it's a magic communicator that can be used in your hands. Su Yi's voice sounded from the magic communicator. "Hello, Marquis of Southgard. I'm the president of New Flyer, Su Yi. It's my first time meeting you." "Oh no, it's my first time talking to you. It's my pleasure." The Marquis of Southgard looked at the magic communicator in surprise, and carefully took it from Princess Caroline's hands. Then, he composed himself and coughed lightly at the magic communicator and said, Chairman Sue, is it? Hello, I'm Dalen Marquis of Southgard. It's my pleasure to meet. Oh no, to hear your voice. Haha, Lord Marquis, I'm sure you're not used to using this method to talk to me for the first time, right? Sue asked. I'm indeed not used to it. The Marquis of Southgard smiled. But I think this method is very novel and interesting. Also, from your conversation with Princess Caroline, you're more than 70 kilometers away from here, and yet you're able to talk to me like this. It's really incredible. Lord Marquis, if you know more about New Flyer, you'll find that our New Flyer has brought you far more than just this magic communicator. I have no doubt about that. The Marquis of Southgard smiled and said, The reason why I came here with Princess Caroline from so far away is because I accidentally learned a lot about your New Flyer. I especially came here to talk to you more. Then it's truly an honor for me and New Flyer. As the President, I represent the New Flyer in expressing our warm welcome to you. The Marquis of Southgard smiled and raised his head to look at Princess Caroline. After a slight pause, he asked, All right, Chairman Sue, although this kind of conversation is novel, I don't think it's a real conversation. In comparison, I still hope that we can talk face to face. What do you think? Of course I think so too. Sue replied straightforwardly. Lord Marquis, I've already made preparations to welcome you. You're always welcome to be a guest. I'm also very willing to be a guest immediately, but Chairman Sue, there's a problem here. I'm sure you already know that my nephew has caused some trouble. If I can't deal with it properly, I'm afraid I won't be able to meet you. Princess Caroline's heart couldn't help but tighten when she heard the deep meaning in the Marquis of Southgard's words. This was clearly the Marquis of Southgard giving Sue a chance to show his sincerity. It all depended on whether Sue was willing to show it or not. If this matter had happened to any other merchant, Princess Caroline wouldn't have been worried, because the other party would definitely give the Marquis of Southgard a satisfactory result and ensure that both sides would be happy. But for some reason, Princess Caroline felt that this simple matter was extremely likely to cause an accident when it came to Sue. The magic communicator was silent for a few seconds, and then Sue's hesitant voice sounded. Lord Marquis, this is really very sorry. Hearing this, a bitter smile appeared on Princess Caroline's face. This guy really was different from others. Even if you and your nephew are honored guests brought here by Princess Caroline, rules are rules. Since your nephew has violated the rules and caused serious losses, he has to bear the consequences according to the rules. I can't help him escape from his crimes. Seymour, who was listening attentively, raised his eyebrows. If it wasn't for the fact that the Marquis of Southgard was holding onto the magic communicator, he would have snatched it away and started cursing at the other party. What bullshit, Sue! He was just the chairman of a small merchant guild in a remote duchy. He actually dared to not give Uncle Dalen and him face. A strange expression flashed across the Marquis of Southgard's face, and then he said, Chairman Sue, so? You're saying that you're not willing to give my nephew a chance, and that you're going to let him be arrested by the public security officers? My apologies, Lord Marquis. These rules are actually set by me, so they have to be strictly followed. No matter who violates them, they have to bear the consequences. Even I am no exception. But if you insist on doing this, then I can only express my disappointment. I originally thought that I would be able to have a pleasant and friendly conversation with Chairman Sue, but it looks like that won't be possible now. The Marquis of Southgard's words were an undisguised threat to Princess Caroline. No matter how one looked at it, the Mala Empire was a colossus to a small merchant guild like New Flyer that wasn't very famous in the signs. If they could attract the interest of this colossus, then it would be an extremely rare opportunity for New Flyer. But now, the Marquis of Southgard had made it clear that if Sue insisted on finding trouble with Seymour, he would most likely turn around and leave. Then, New Flyer would completely lose this opportunity. After a moment of silence in the magic communicator, Sue sighed softly. Lord Marquis, if that's your decision, then I can only express my regret. But I must remind you that whether or not you are willing to be a guest here, your nephew has violated the rules here, so he has to be investigated. What kind of joke is this? Seymour couldn't help but speak, his face full of anger and disbelief. Was there a mistake? Uncle Dalen had already spoken up for him, and Sue didn't immediately listen to him. He actually dared to find trouble with him after Uncle Dalen made his stance clear? Was he tired of living? The Marquis of Southgard also revealed a trace of surprise when he heard Sue's reply. Chairman Sue, you mean? You must find trouble with my nephew? My apologies, this is my principle. Chairman Sue, I must remind you. Before this nephew came with me, an old friend entrusted him to me, hoping that I could take care of him along the way. If anything happens to him, I won't be able to face my old friend. If you insist on finding trouble with him, I'm afraid I can't just stand by and watch. Lord Marquis, I don't mean to offend you, nor do I mean to offend your old friend. I only hope that your nephew can cooperate with the public security officers and accept the investigation. If he cooperates, I believe that he will be able to get a good result, and it won't cause him any serious losses. The Marquis of Southgard's expression darkened. Chairman Sue, do you insist on doing this? There was a soft gasp from the magic communicator, which then turned into Sue's firm voice. Yes, Lord Marquis, I insist on doing this. Chapter 774. Very good. I think we can end our conversation here. The Marquis of Southgard handed the magic communicator back to Princess Caroline. Princess Caroline wanted to pick up the magic communicator to persuade Sue, but she discovered that the green light on the magic communicator had already been extinguished. She immediately smiled bitterly. It seemed that Sue's attitude was irreversible. Uncle Dalen, let's go back. That bullshit Sue and New Flyer actually dared to treat you with such an attitude. Fortunately, this is the Principality of Constantine. If we were in the Malar Empire, I would have immediately taught him a lesson. The Marquis of Southgard narrowed his eyes and glanced at Seymour. He did not speak, and instead turned to look at Princess Caroline. Your Highness! Lord Marquis, you! Princess Caroline opened her mouth, but did not know what to say. She was very clear that Sue had destroyed the opportunity to cooperate with the Mala Empire. From the perspective of benefits, Sue's actions were simply stupid to the extreme. However, from a personal point of view, Princess Caroline felt that Sue was simply full of charm. This contradictory feeling made her smile bitterly. She did not know how to express her inner thoughts. Your Highness, let's set off. Chairman Sue must be waiting anxiously. Princess Caroline nodded, but then her eyes widened in shock. Lord Marquis, you still want to meet Chairman Sue? Why not? The Marquis of Southgard asked Princess Caroline in confusion. Wasn't this our original plan? But, Princess Caroline pointed at Seymour, who was also shocked. Viscount Seymour, his matter, Seymour? The Marquis of Southgard turned to look at Seymour, and the smile on his face instantly turned gloomy. He said in an unusually low and unquestionable tone, Seymour, go with these two public security officers and cooperate with their investigation. Remember, you have to cooperate with them and work hard. If you dare to cause trouble again, I don't mind teaching you on behalf of your father. Even though the Marquis of Southgard didn't sound harsh, Seymour couldn't help but shudder. He knew very well that this time, Uncle Dalen was serious. Therefore, he did not have the slightest thought of resisting and obediently walked to the side of the two public security officers. The Marquis of Southgard smiled at the two security officers who were also in a daze. "Thank you for your hard work. Please be patient with my nephew. If you need anything, you can contact me or Princess Caroline through the new flyer at any time." After saying this, he sat back in the magic sedan. He didn't even look at Seymour as he waved his hand at Princess Caroline. "Your Highness, let's set off." Princess Caroline looked at Seymour with a strange look before looking at the Marquis of Southgard. She didn't say a thing as she sat in the magic sedan. After a while, the motorcade of 7 magic sedans set off at the same time, quickly disappearing into the distance. ####. An hour later, the motorcade slowly stopped in front of Su Yi's private manor by the sea. Seeing Su Yi standing in front of the gate in the distance, looking over, Princess Caroline felt a bit strange. She wasn't surprised that Su Yi knew ahead of time that the motorcade would be here. After all, this was Su Yi's territory. It would be strange if he didn't know about this. What she was surprised about was that Su Yi had a bright smile on his face. It didn't seem like he was affected by his conversation with the Marquis of Southgard at all. It had to be known, according to normal logic, the conversation between Su Yi and the Marquis of Southgard just now clearly meant that their talks had broken down. It was reasonable to say that the two of them should be angry at each other and ignore each other. But not only did the Marquis of Southgard's reaction surprise Princess Caroline, she was also confused by Su Yi's current appearance. These two men, just what were they thinking? Princess Caroline's mind was filled with doubts. When she came out of the magic sedan and saw Su Yi, who came over with a smile, she revealed the same bright smile. "Hey Caroline, it's been 1.5 years since we last met, right? After not seeing you for so long, you're still this beautiful. It really makes me very happy." Su Yi reached his hand out to Princess Caroline with a smile. Princess Caroline looked down at Su Yi's outstretched right hand and suddenly revealed a naughty smile. She suddenly opened her arms and tightly hugged Su Yi, who was caught off guard, as she gave him a kiss on the cheek without any politeness. "Su Yi, after not seeing each other for so long, you're still this cold to me. I'm very hurt." Feeling the warmth from Princess Caroline's lips, Su Yi's expression became a bit awkward and a bit helpless. After thinking about it, he also raised his hands to hug Princess Caroline, but he didn't kiss her back. "Hey Caroline, there are still guests here." Hearing Su Yi say this, Princess Caroline let go with a smile. Su Yi reminded her that there were guests here. Didn't this mean that he wasn't treating her as a guest and was treating her as one of his own? Su Yi, let me introduce you. This is Dalen, Marquis of Southgard. Sir Marquis. He is the new Flyers chairman, Su Yi. Su Yi and the Marquis of Southgard looked at each other, and the two of them revealed smiles of understanding at the same time before reaching out to shake hands. "Sir Marquis, welcome. Chairman Su, I'm very happy to finally meet you." The two looked at each other and laughed at the same time. Su Yi then said, "Sir Marquis, let me tell you some good news. Because Viscount Seymour has cooperated with the Public Security Department and admitted his mistakes, as well as agreeing to pay enough compensation, he has already obtained the forgiveness of the injured passengers of the public transport magic car. So according to the rules, he will only be locked up for 7 days and won't receive any other punishment." "Oh? That's very good." The Marquis of Southgard gave a slight nod, as if he didn't care about what punishment Seymour received. After thinking for a bit, he asked, "Chairman Su, I already have some basic understanding of the magic cars, but can I ask, are there any differences between the public transport magic cars here and the public transport magic cars I saw in Banta City?" "There isn't that big of a difference because the public transport system of Banta City was mainly designed by me. If there has to be a comparison, it is that our public transport system is more complete. One is because there were many restrictions when I designed the public transport system in Banta City, but that isn't the case here. Two is that this place is closer to our company's production base, so we can provide more and better magic cars." I understand. Then let me ask you another question. If there aren't enough roads as a foundation, wouldn't it be very hard to build a public transport system like this? Although with roads as a foundation, it can make it easier for the magic cars to operate, this isn't a necessary condition. Our company's passenger magic cars can already meet the requirements of running on normal roads, so as long as there are normal roads and there are enough passenger magic cars, we can try building a public transport system. It's like this? If you want to build a public transport system in a city that is more than 10 times bigger than Banta City, Chairman Su, how many gold coins do you think it will cost? This isn't easy to estimate because each city has different conditions and needs, so it needs to be measured. But according to normal conditions, if it's more than 10 times bigger than Banta City, the scale of the public transport system would be more than 10 times bigger. Why isn't it more than 10 times? This isn't a simple multiplication because the bigger the city, the more complicated the situation is. If you want to satisfy it, you need to spend more resources. That isn't wrong. Then I've heard that the initial investment for Banta City's public transport system is around 300,000 gold coins, and it will cost around 50,000 gold coins each year. According to what you just said, if we build a public transport system in a city that is more than 10 times bigger, the initial investment will be over 10 million gold coins and it will cost over 1 million gold coins each year? That isn't the case. This is because Banta City's public transport system was their first attempt, so there were many unnecessary expenses. If we rebuild it now, I can control the cost to be around 100,000 to 150,000 gold coins. As for the subsequent investment, it can offset the income each year, so there is no need for additional investment. Oh? If that's the case, then it's still considered cheap. Seeing Su-yi and the Marquis of Southgard talking like old friends while leaving her to the side, Princess Caroline couldn't help rolling her eyes and cutting off their conversation. Hey, Su-yi, you're not planning on inviting us in for a cup of tea? Su-yi was stunned before patting his head with a smile and reaching his hand out to invite them in. Please, Sir Marquis, Caroline, everyone come in and take a seat. I've already prepared a sumptuous lunch, we can enjoy it together later. The Marquis of Southgard laughed and didn't hold back as he walked into the manor. But before he even took 2 steps, he couldn't help turning to ask Su-yi a question. Su-yi was also very surprised. No matter what the Marquis of Southgard asked, he would give a very detailed answer. He didn't seem bored at all, like he really treated the Marquis of Southgard as a close friend. Seeing the two of them discussing in full swing, Princess Caroline could only helplessly shake her head. Then she saw Steele waiting for guests with a faint smile behind the door. Her eyes fell onto Steele's slightly swollen stomach, and Princess Caroline was stunned before letting out a weak sigh. Chapter 775. The Marquis of Southgard was like a curious child. He was filled with endless curiosity towards the new flyer. Now that he had finally seen Su-yi, he had countless questions. Of course, he wasn't satisfied with just relying on Su-yi to answer these questions. Thus, he proposed to Su-yi that he would stay here for a while and observe the new flyer, which naturally received Su-yi's approval. But Princess Caroline never would have thought that the Marquis of Southgard would stay here for half a month without any intention of leaving. If it was said that the Marquis of Southgard couldn't leave Seymour alone a week ago, then even if Seymour expressed that he didn't want to stay in this place that had humiliated him, the Marquis of Southgard still ignored him and continued to stay because of his own will. Su-yi welcomed the idea of the Marquis of Southgard staying here, but Princess Caroline was in a difficult position. She originally planned to stay in the Principality of Constantine for 3 days before returning to the Drake Duchy in a week. But now, because of the Marquis of Southgard, she was forced to stay here for half a month, which far exceeded her expectations. Princess Caroline was in charge of the magic machine industry in the Drake Duchy, so there were many matters in the duchy that she had to take care of. If she continued to stay here, there would be a lot of inconveniences. But the Marquis of Southgard was an important person from the Mala Empire. Getting to know him was not only an important opportunity for the new flyer, it was also important for the Drake Duchy. The Drake Duchy's household magic machines couldn't compete with the Shinfei brand, nor could they compete with the various brands of the Lampari Kingdom, so they had to open up the market. Before this, the Drake Duchy was working towards the neighboring Sac Kingdom and Frankish Kingdom. Now that the Malar Empire had appeared in front of her, Princess Caroline naturally wanted to seize this opportunity. So without much consideration, Princess Caroline made the decision to stay here and accompany the Marquis of Southgard. As for the internal matters of the duchy, she would leave it to her subordinates to take care of. Not to mention that even if there wasn't the Marquis of Southgard, she was very willing to stay here. The new flyer was the Drake Duchy's most important partner, so if they could strengthen their relationship with the new flyer, it would be good for the Drake Duchy. Even if all of these factors were to be disregarded, Princess Caroline would be more than willing to accept the choice of staying here. However, this choice always made her face a situation that made her feel defeated deep in her heart. Steele, this second child, you should want it to be a boy, right? Princess Caroline took her hand off Steele's stomach and asked this. The two of them were in Su Yi's private manor and there was no one else around, so they could talk about some private matters. Steele revealed a faint smile. Freya is a girl, so it would be better if she gave birth to a boy. But Su Yi doesn't care about this problem. I feel that he would rather have a daughter. Liz and Linda both gave birth to a son for him. Princess Caroline looked at Steele with a deep look in her eyes. Although she didn't say it, how could Steele not understand her meaning? She gave a soft laugh and shook her head. Your Highness, if you want to maintain a good image in front of Su Yi, it's best if you don't say this in front of him. Princess Caroline didn't think that Steele would be so straightforward and couldn't help being stunned. She forced out a smile and said, All right, I was thinking too much. Su Yi is a rare good man, this isn't a problem for him. Steele, do you know how much I envy you? Steele spread her hands with a smile. Your Highness, if you really envy me, I won't oppose your thoughts towards Su Yi. Princess Caroline was stunned and looked at Steele in disbelief. But seeing that the smile on her face wasn't forced, she couldn't help feeling strange. Steele, I thought that Su Yi suddenly became fickle in these 2 years because of himself, but now it seems like it's more related to you, right? You're right. If it wasn't for me encouraging or forcing him, he would still only have me as his woman. Then why are you doing this? Could it be that you're not worried that he would be taken away by another woman? Princess Caroline looked at Steele with a confused look. If it was me, I would only hope that Su Yi would only have me in his embrace. I also thought this at first, but after being with Su Yi for so long, I don't care about this kind of thing as much as before. Why? Could it be because you don't love Su Yi as much as before? Princess Caroline hesitated a bit before asking this. No, I still love him. But it's different from before. I feel that since I love him, I should properly support him. Although he has had several women in these 2 years, whether it is Liz, Linda, or Agnes, they all had to be with him because of various reasons. If I oppose it, it will hurt many people. But if you don't oppose it, you'll hurt yourself. Steele, why are you being so foolish? I don't feel like I'm being hurt. Steele shook her head with a smile. Because I know that Su Yi has always put me first in his heart, that is enough. Princess Caroline looked at Steele in a speechless manner. After a while, she said with a sigh, I can't understand what you're thinking. From what I can see, love is selfish. If you don't want to monopolize the other party, it means that your love from before wasn't perfect. I am about to become a mother with 2 children and your Highness is still an unmarried girl. Of course there will be a difference in thinking, this isn't strange. Steele said with a faint smile. Speaking of this, your Highness, are you still not considering marriage? The people of the Drake Duchy have been looking forward to your marriage for a long time, right? Princess Caroline rolled her eyes. Other than Sui, there aren't any other men in my eyes. But with your prestige in the Drake Duchy, you might inherit the position of Duke in the future, so you can't not get married, right? Che, the Lampari Kingdom's Queen 70 isn't married yet, although she has already given birth. After saying this, Princess Caroline seemed to have suddenly thought of something. She looked at Still with a strange expression and paused as if she wanted to say something, but then hesitated. Still looked at her and didn't say anything. The two silently looked at each other for a bit before Princess Caroline revealed an awkward smile. She looked around before standing up. All right, I should be leaving. The Marquis of Southgard should have finished his tour of the shipyard. I'll go find him. No need, Sir Marquis is currently on the Paladin, heading to the Black Rice Harbor. If nothing unexpected happens, he'll be back tomorrow. Su Yi's voice suddenly came from behind her. Princess Caroline turned back in surprise. What is he going to the Black Rice Harbor for? Could it be that he wants to go back from there? Su Yi couldn't help laughing. Do you think that Sir Marquis is such a rude person? He would leave you here and run home alone? He just wants to experience the magic ship on the sea and see how the Black Rice Harbor works. Oh, this Sir Marquis really is curious. He just raced yesterday, and he's going to experience the ship today. Sui laughed. That's right, there are many times when I feel that Sir Marquis isn't a middle-aged man who's over 50, rather he's a curious child. But this is a good thing. The more interested he is in these things, the more likely it is that he will cooperate with us. That's right. But Sui, you've been in contact with Sir Marquis in the past few days. Has he told you anything? Princess Caroline asked. Sui pointed at the chair on the platform and had Princess Caroline sit down. Then he sat down beside Steele and replied, according to what Sir Marquis has said, after he returns to the Malor Empire, he might have the Malor Empire's agricultural department purchase a batch of agricultural magic machines and fertilizer from our company. This isn't surprising. Princess Caroline nodded. Agriculture was the main problem of any country in the signs. Even a large empire like the Malor Empire wasn't an exception. Before, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had relied on promoting agricultural magic machines in the Lampuri Kingdom. Then when they cooperated with the surrounding countries, the first thing they cooperated with was to buy agricultural magic machines as well. Up to this point, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had sold over 500,000 agricultural magic machines to the surrounding countries, earning over 20 million gold coins in profit from this. The surrounding countries had already popularized agricultural magic machines, so the market was saturated. Only the Sac Kingdom had some room to develop. Now that the Malor Empire had suddenly popped out, this was naturally good news for New Flyer. Other than the agricultural magic machines? It can't be that he's only interested in this, right? Princess Caroline kept asking. Of course. Sir Marquis's biggest interest is in various kinds of infrastructure. For example, he has always been interested in the automatic water supply system and the various construction magic machines that can increase infrastructure. He has told me several times that after he returns to the Malor Empire, he will immediately change the infrastructure of the small cities in his territory. First he will build roads and automatic water supply systems, while also building a public transport system. For this, he is planning to buy large amounts of medium-sized passenger magic cars from our company, as well as cooperating with the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Princess Caroline slightly knit her brows, looking a bit disappointed. Other than this? These are all related to the production magic machines. Doesn't he have any other ideas? For example, buying some household magic machines to bring back? Sui looked at her with a bit of a smile before shaking his head. Sir Marquis said that although the household magic machines are easy to use, they aren't as important as the infrastructure, so he won't consider them for now. But these things can also improve people's lives. Could it be that the people of the Malor Empire don't need them? Sui, can't you take the initiative to sell them to Sir Marquis? No, I have the same idea as Sir Marquis. The cooperation in terms of household magic machines shouldn't be done between him and me, otherwise what difference is there between him and Ambassador Hakkinen of the Candla Empire? But you've earned quite a bit of money through Ambassador Hakkinen, right? Not to mention that you can enter the Candla Empire because of him. Sue, I don't understand what you're thinking. Princess Caroline's expression was a bit anxious. The Drake Duchy's magic machine industry was all focused on household magic machines. If the Marquis of Southgard really wasn't interested in household magic machines, Princess Caroline's efforts during this time would have been wasted. No need to rush. Sue seemed to see through Princess Caroline's thoughts as he waved his hand with a smile. Even if Sir Marquis isn't interested in household magic machines for now, that doesn't mean he won't be interested in the future. It also doesn't mean that the Mallow Empire isn't interested in this. But, you don't need to worry that your Drake Duchy won't benefit from this, Sue said with a faint smile. Caroline, I'm very grateful that you brought these two special guests here, so as thanks, I've decided to start a new cooperation with your duchy. It's related to production magic machines. Production magic machines. Princess Caroline's large eyes instantly lit up as her expression became a bit excited. Chapter 776. Before the Marquis of Southgard left, there was another important guest that came to the Principality of Constantine. This was Russell's third time coming to the Principality of Constantine. It was different from the previous two times. This time he didn't have Ambassador Hakkinen come with him. Rather he brought several subordinates from the Candla Empire's navy, sitting in the pure black magic car that he had bought from the Belil Magic Car Company, coming all the way from the Candla Empire. Although he had already notified Sue through the method that Sue had given him, Sue was still a bit surprised when he saw the serious appearances of Russell and his subordinates. Based on their appearance, they weren't just here to inspect this time. As expected, after exchanging a few pleasantries with Sue, Russell directly entered the main topic. Chairman Sue, the cooperation I proposed to you last time has already been approved by the headquarters. Now as long as you agree on behalf of the new flyer, the first cooperation between us can take effect. Russell looked into Sue's eyes and said with a serious look. Sue was silent for a bit before asking with a smile, Sir Russell, may I ask how many guard ships you're planning on buying? An awkward look appeared on Russell's face. After hesitating for a bit, he reluctantly raised 3 fingers to Sue. 30? This is a bit hard. With our company's current production capacity, 30 guard ships will take several years to build. No. It's 3. After saying this, Russell's old face couldn't help turning a bit red. As the glorious navy of the Candla Empire, it was already shameful for them to open their mouth and buy a warship from a company of another country. What was even more shameful was that they were only buying 3 at a time. Sue was stunned. A strange look appeared in his eyes, but he suppressed it and revealed a warm smile. 3? Then there's no problem, we can finish building these 3 guard ships in 3 months at the earliest. But how will the cooperation you mentioned be completed? Relax, we're already prepared. Russell took out a document from his bag and gave it to Sue. This was a cooperation agreement. It clearly stated that as compensation for buying 3 guard ships from the new flyer, the Candla Empire Navy would pay 1,500,000 gold coins. At the same time, they would work with the new flyer to develop mineral resources on several small islands in the southern seas of the Candla Empire. At the same time, the Candla Empire Navy would cooperate with the new flyer to build several bases in the southern seas of the Candla Empire, for the new flyer's transport fleet to resupply and rest when the new flyer's transport fleet passed by. Other than this, the Candra Empire's navy would open 2 ports for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's transport fleet and guard fleet. The port open to the transport fleet was a deep water port in the south of the Candra Empire. After it was opened to the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce's transport fleet, it allowed the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce to transport large amounts of goods back and forth. This was equivalent to indirectly opening the southern part of the Canla Empire's market to the new flyer. If this was on Earth, where commerce was highly developed, this method would have been very sloppy. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been so easy to open. But for the various countries on the signs, this wasn't a big problem. These ports were under the control of the Canla Empire's navy. As long as the Empire's navy agreed, there wouldn't be any problems. Opening the New Flyer's military port to the New Flyer's fleet was more or less a problem. However, the Canla Empire's navy gave the New Flyer's fleet an identity as an auxiliary fleet of the Empire's navy in the name of cooperating with the New Flyer's fleet to fight pirates. This allowed them to freely enter and leave the Empire's military port. Chairman Su, this is in consideration of the military's opinion, so we only gave you the identity of an auxiliary fleet. Please don't mind it, Russell explained to Sui. He was very clear that in terms of pure combat strength, the New Flyer's fleet was actually far superior to the Empire's navy that didn't have a large number of frigate. Therefore, in name, the New Flyer's fleet was the auxiliary fleet, but in reality, if they really encountered pirates, the New Flyer's fleet would be the main combat force. The pirates in the southern waters of the Canla Empire weren't rampant for a day or two. Previously, the Canla Empire's navy had encircled and annihilated them many times, but because the navy's ships couldn't completely suppress the pirates, there was no way to achieve truly outstanding result. But after the New Flyer's fleet arrived, relying on the frigate's superior attack power and extreme speed, as long as they encountered pirates, the pirates couldn't resist at all. They couldn't even escape. In just half a year, more than half of the pirates in the southern waters of the Canla Empire had disappeared, and they were no longer as rampant as before. Oh, that's nothing. Sui waved his hand, indicating that he didn't care. He really didn't care about the title. After all, the Canla Empire was one of the two empires on this continent, and it was understandable that they wanted to have a sense of superiority in name. In comparison, Sui paid more attention to the practical significance of this. Opening the civilian port to the transport fleet meant that they took the initiative to open up the market to the New Flyer, and that was actually enough. Opening the military port to the fleet would allow the fleet to have a more stable and sufficient supply base when cruising the southern waters of the Canla Empire in the future, and they wouldn't need to run all the way back to the Kingdom of Ruhr's Nissi port to resupply. This way, it would greatly increase the range of activities of the New Flyer's fleet, and it would help the New Flyer to explore and develop the southern waters of the Canla Empire and the surrounding waters more deeply. Sui carefully looked at the cooperation agreement and found that the contents listed on it didn't only include all the contents that Russell mentioned to him last time, but there were also a lot of additional items. He couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. It could be seen that the Canla Empire's navy really brought out a good deal of sincerity to cooperate with the New Flyer this time. This was a good start, and it proved that the Canla Empire's navy had enough considerations to continue to cooperate with the New Flyer in the future. After discussing some of the details of the agreement with Russell, both sides quickly reached an agreement and signed their names on the agreement. Seeing Sui sign the agreement, Russell's face immediately revealed a bright smile, and he extended his hand to Sui. Chairman Su, happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Sui smiled and shook hands with Russell and then asked, Sir Russell, I have another question. After you buy these 3 frigates, how do you plan to use them? Russell looked at Sui strangely. Of course it's to let them serve the Navy immediately. Only by letting others see the power of these frigates with their own eyes will they support the Navy to replace them with these frigates on a large scale. What? Chairman Su, don't you want this? No, I really hope that your Navy can replace them with frigates on a large scale, because only in this way can our Chamber of Commerce make money, right? Sui laughed and glanced at the several followers behind Russell who had the same strange expression, and didn't ask any more questions. The construction of any frigate wasn't something that could be done in a day or two, so there was no point for Russell to continue to stay here. However, he still left a subordinate behind, and told Sui that he was there to supervise the construction of the frigates, and to act as a middleman between the two sides. Sui wasn't surprised by this, and he didn't have any objections. He gladly accepted, and immediately ordered his subordinates to prepare a place for this so-called Kanla Empire Navy observer. Seeing that Sui was very cooperative, Russell was relieved, and only stayed in the Principality of Constantine for a day. The next morning, before he planned to leave, Russell decided to visit the New Flyer shipyard. In addition to observing the construction process of the frigates, it was also a way for the observers to prepare for the first day of work. Seeing that all the work in the New Flyer shipyard was done in an orderly manner, with each worker being filled with energy and moving smoothly, Russell was very satisfied before deciding to leave. With Sui accompanying him, Russell walked to the pier of the Shinfei harbor. He looked at the endless sea in the distance and said to Sui in an emotional voice, "Chairman Su, I've heard that you have a wish to explore the depths of the endless sea?" Sui gave a slight nod, "Yes. Actually, my goal in developing the magic boats was to one day explore all the places on the endless sea with the magic boat. I've always believed that there's definitely one or several other continents outside of the continent we're currently on." "Is it because of the legend of the halflings?" Russell asked with a smile. After coming to the New Flyer several times, he already knew that there was a legendary halfling in the New Flyer. Moreover, when he was visiting the shipyard, Sui had even introduced him to them. "It's not just because of the halflings, it's also because exploring this unknown world is something that people desire the most," Sui replied. "Sir Russell, don't you feel that exploring a new world makes people excited?" Russell laughed. "I'm already old. This kind of thing should be left to a young person like you. Of course, I hope that when the time comes, our Empire's navy can explore the endless sea with your New Flyer's guard fleet. After all, other than the new world in the endless sea, isn't there endless danger?" Sui smiled and didn't respond to Russell's words. As if he realized something from Sui's reaction, Russell's expression changed slightly. He turned to look into the depths of the sea and found that there were several small mountain-sized ships quickly heading towards the harbor. "This should be your New Flyer's transport fleet, right? I've long heard that they are extremely huge. Seeing them with my own eyes today, they really live up to their reputation," Russell exclaimed. "You will see them often in the future," Sui replied with a smile, but then he suddenly thought of something and his expression changed slightly. Sensing Sui's strange expression, Russell asked, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "No. Nothing." Sui looked up at the paladin that was already close to the harbor, and a strange feeling flashed through his heart. After a while, the bridge on the paladin was lowered. Under the personal escort of the paladin's captain, the Marquis of Southgard, who went to visit the Black Rice Harbor with the paladin yesterday, walked down from the ship. Seeing Sui standing on the harbor, the Marquis of Southgard walked over with a smile. "Chairman Su, you're too polite. You actually came to welcome me personally." The Marquis of Southgard suddenly paused. His gaze moved away from Sui and fixed on Russell, who was beside Sui, and the smile on his face instantly disappeared. The smile on Russell's face had also long disappeared. Chapter 777. He didn't need to think too much, and Sui could already see the sparks between the Marquis of Southgard and Russell. "Yo, isn't this the dear Marquis of Southgard? I didn't think that it would be such a coincidence to meet you here. It really is a surprise." The first to speak was Russell. "I thought that you would be hiding in your rat hole every day, but I never thought that you would have the guts to come out." The Marquis of Southgard gave a cold laugh filled with ridicule. "Dear Count Russell, if I remember correctly, you were the one who hid every day and didn't dare come out. If I really had to describe you as a rat, wouldn't it be more appropriate for you?" Hearing the cold laughter of the two, Sue gave a bitter smile in his heart. The Malur Empire and the Canla Empire were two large empires with tens of millions of people. There were many important people among them, so why did the Marquis of Southgard and Russell know each other and have a grudge against each other? Sir Russell, Sir Marquis, do you two know each other? As the owner of this place, Sue naturally couldn't just stand by and watch. He could only force himself to take a step forward and stand between the two of them. "Humph, we don't just know each other." Russell gave a cold snort. "If it wasn't for this damn rat, how could I have been transferred to the Empire's Navy? So you've already been demoted to the Navy. That really is something worth celebrating." The Marquis of Southgard was always calm in front of other people, but when facing Russell, his tone was filled with ridicule and he had a sour face. This made Sue very curious about what kind of grudge the two of them had for them to be this angry when they met. "Even if I'm in the Navy, I'm still in the Army. But what about you? I've heard that the Marlow war god Dalen Southgate has disappeared from the Malur Empire's army after the last battle. Speak, are you afraid that you don't dare face the warriors of Arcane Empire?" The Marquis of Southgard gave a strong snort, but he didn't refute Russell. He turned to Sue and asked, "Chairman Sue, can you tell me why he's here? Could it be that your new flyer has a cooperation with the Canla Empire?" "I should be asking you this," Russell replied before Sue's question. "The Marlow Empire is at least 3,000 kilometers away. Why did you come all the way here? Are you qualified to know?" Marquis Southgate replied without any courtesy. "But I can tell you the truth. I accidentally learned of the existence of the new flyer and was very interested in it, so I specially came here to take a look. But you, Russell, it seems like you're representing your Canla Empire's Navy this time? But with your Canla Empire's military department, can you really cooperate with the new flyer?" This question hit the sore spot in Russell's heart, making him speechless for a while. Being able to come to the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce to discuss this cooperation and finally deciding to buy 3 guard ships, he had used all his methods to convince the high-level commanders of the Royal Navy. Finally, he had convinced the Budget Department of the Royal Army with great difficulty to approve this. But even if the Military Department approved the Navy's proposal, they were still very tight on the budget. Russell had no choice but to give up the idea of buying several dozen or even 100 guard ships. To be honest, he didn't think that the 3 frigates could bring much change to the Imperial Navy. His real purpose was to bring the 3 frigates back and let his colleagues in the Imperial Navy see the power of the frigates with their own eyes. This would change their view of the Imperial Navy. Only with a clear common goal could the Navy have the opportunity to get more budget from the military department and satisfy his desire to improve the Navy's strength. But even so, Russell still couldn't be sure that everything would go as smoothly as he expected. In the end, it was a matter of money. The Canla Empire's financial situation was relatively normal in recent years, causing the military department's budget to constantly drop. In comparison, the less important Navy's budget was naturally more tight. If it was in the past, it wouldn't be a problem to take out tens of millions of gold coins to buy several dozen guard ships. But now it was very difficult to even take out the money to buy 3 guard ships. Thinking of this, Russell's face couldn't help but turn gloomy. The Marquis of Southgard sharply noticed Russell's change and immediately broke out in laughter. Russell angrily glared at the Marquis of Southgard before giving a cold snort. He turned to bid farewell to Sue before turning to leave. The subordinates behind him quickly followed him and sat in the magic sedan he had bought, disappearing into the distance after a while. When Russell left, the Marquis of Southgard stopped laughing. Looking in the direction Russell left he thought for a bit before turning to Sue to say, "Chairman Sue, I'm very grateful for your warm hospitality during this time. I've seen everything here and answered all the questions I needed to answer. Since I've disturbed you long enough, it's time to say goodbye." Sui slightly raised his brows. "Sir Marquis, you're leaving?" "That's right, I wanted to stay here for a bit longer, but it seems like I can't keep waiting. Chairman Su, I'm saying goodbye to you now. I'll be heading back to the Mala Empire with Seymour in the afternoon." "You're not going with Princess Caroline?" Sui asked. The Marquis of Southgard revealed a faint smile. "Her Highness has already sent us back safely, so there's no need to trouble her when we go back. Moreover, I feel that Her Highness will want to stay here for a bit longer." Sui nodded and didn't say anything else. "All right, Sir Marquis, I hope that the half a month I've spent here will leave a good impression in your mind. I represent myself and the new flyer to welcome you as a guest again in the future." "Definitely." The Marquis of Southgard nodded with a faint smile. "Chairman Su, I think that there will be many places where we can cooperate in the future. There will be more chances for me to come to the Principality of Constantine than Russell. If nothing unexpected happens, after I return to the Mala Empire and prepare for some time, I will formally propose some cooperation to you. I hope that you can prepare ahead of time." Sui nodded. "No problem. If you need anything, we can prepare it for you at any time." "All right. Since it's like this, then I'll be leaving." The Marquis of Southgard waved his hand at Sui before leading Seymour and his subordinates to the magic sedan that they had driven all the way here. Just like Russell, they left without any hesitation. Seeing the Marquis of Southgard's motorcade disappear into the horizon, Sui shook his head with a bitter smile. Although the meeting between Russell and the Marquis of Southgard today was an accident, he already had this idea in his heart. He just didn't have a good chance to do it. In the end, Russell and the Marquis of Southgard were old acquaintances and they met through this accident, which inadvertently achieved Sui's goal. The continent didn't need two equally strong empires, so the Kandla Empire and the Mala Empire were like fire and water, so there was no chance of reconciliation. But because they had this kind of relationship, it was beneficial for the new flyer to benefit from this. Although the cooperation between the new flyer and the Kandla Empire was only in its initial stages and the cooperation with the Mala Empire was only a shadow, without anything substantial, Sui believed that these two large empires would be firmly linked to the new flyer in the future. Although playing a balance between the two empires was no different from playing with fire, with the powerful chips in his hands, Sui wasn't that worried. After thinking for a bit on the pier, Sui's figure flashed, and he appeared in the Academy of Magic that was around 5 kilometers away from the pier. Sui's sudden appearance scared the researchers who were discussing in the garden outside, but Sui only greeted them before heading to Evita's private lab. As soon as he opened the door to the lab, he was greeted with a cry of surprise and Sui was immediately embraced by a small and delicate body. Feeling the fragrance that entered his nostrils, Sui calmed himself down and helped Teresa in his embrace to stand up. "Hey, Teresa, why are you in such a hurry?" Teresa looked up at Sui and a blush appeared on her face. She lowered her head and said in a soft voice, I'm going to get something." Without waiting for Sui's reaction, she quickly left like a frightened deer. Seeing Teresa disappear around the corner, a strange smile appeared on Sui's face and he walked into the lab. "President, aren't you accompanying Sir Marquis of Southgard?" Evita's special gentle voice sounded in the lab. "He already left," Sui replied. He habitually looked around the lab and asked, "What did Teresa come here for?" "She asked me about the parameters of the magic cannon's magic array," Evita replied. "Oh? How did you answer her?" Evita looked deeply at Sui. "Don't worry, President, I've been answering her according to your instructions." Sui smiled and nodded. "Yes, I'm always assured when you do things. But Evita, what about the things I told you to do before? How is it?" "The beginning has been written, please take a look, President." Evita replied and took out a thick notebook for Sui. Chapter 778. Sui received the notebook and opened it to see a title on the first page. Introduction to Magic Machinery Fundamental Theory. Scrolling down, one would discover that this notebook was describing extremely basic, but also the core of magic machinery theoretical knowledge. Evita's description of these fundamental theories in this notebook was incomparably detailed and exceptionally easy to understand. Even a person who had never come into contact with magic machinery would be able to obtain a preliminary understanding of magic machinery principles from this notebook. However, one could see that the contents of this notebook were more focused on the construction of magic arrays and the effects of using magic arrays as a power source on magic machinery. As for mechanical knowledge, it was slightly less involved. Simply speaking, this was closer to an introductory reference book on magic power theory, but it was still lacking compared to a complete magic machinery fundamental theory. This wasn't out of Suyi's expectations. He had asked Evita to assist in writing this magic machinery fundamental theory book, and originally requested her to focus on the construction of magic arrays as well as the effects of using magic arrays as a power source on magic machinery. As for the mechanical aspect, it was mainly written by himself, with Kanbai and the other engineers assisting him. Sui skimmed through it once and discovered that Evita didn't disappoint his expectations. Not only did she not make any obvious mistakes, but she also made many details exceptionally perfect, even exceeding his expectations in explaining and understanding. Very good, Evita. I discovered that in the field of magic array theory, you are definitely not inferior to me, or even to any magus in this world. You are exaggerating. Evita laughed embarrassedly. After pondering for a moment, she asked, Sir Chairman, do you really intend to publicly publish this book? That's right. Sui closed the notebook with a pa sound. I intend to use this book as an introductory reference book for establishing the magic machine industry theory system. I guarantee that anyone will be able to gain a certain level of understanding and interest in the magic machine industry through this book. Not only do I want to publicly publish it, I want to publicize it so that everyone will know of its existence, buy it, and read it. Speaking till here, Sui suddenly chuckled towards Evita. Evita, I can guarantee that this book will sell like hotcakes. Then, as one of the authors, where do you want your name to be placed? Ah! Evita was startled. Sir Chairman, shouldn't this book be published under your name? Do I look like a thief who steals the fruits of other people's labor? Sui purposely frowned, reprimanding her with a face of dissatisfaction. Actually, if not for the need to publicize this book, I wouldn't even want to put my name on it. Because I don't need this book to raise my fame, right? But I don't really wish to be famous, Evita said. No, Evita, you must be famous, you must be extremely famous. Sui grabbed Evita's shoulder and said with a serious look, Remember, you are the chief of our Frestec Chamber of Commerce's magic research facility, so in the magic machine industry, you are the most outstanding expert. There is no one more outstanding than you in this industry. You must have this confidence. Do you understand what I mean? I don't quite understand. If we really compare our understanding of magic machines, I am far inferior to Sir Chairman. Don't compare yourself to me. My main identity is the chairman of the New Flyer. Sui shook his head. Or let me put it bluntly. We need to establish an expert. I am the chairman, so I am not suitable. Canby and the others aren't humans, so they aren't suitable either. Thus, you are the most suitable candidate. If that's the case, then Akali is also very suitable. But Akali isn't the chairman, you are. Sui sternly said. In short, listen to my arrangements, all right? Evita was silent for a moment before nodding. All right, Sir Chairman. Seeing Evita agree, Sui revealed a smile. He patted Evita's shoulder and comforted her. You don't need to worry that Akali won't be happy, I've given her something else to do. Compared to this, she will be more willing to do these things. Yes, I believe in you, Sir Chairman. Seeing Sue-yi let out a sigh of relief, Evita laughed. Sir Chairman, you don't need to care about our feelings. We are your subordinates, so of course we have to listen to your arrangements. Sui shook his head. No, I have never treated you as my normal subordinates. Even if it wasn't because of steel, just by myself, I can't ignore your feelings. Is that so? Evita blinked and glanced at the door of the laboratory. She suddenly let out a faint sigh. But what do you plan on doing with Teresa? Sui turned his head to look at the door. He narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything for a while. #####. The Marquis of Southgard and Russell had left very quickly, but Princess Caroline had gone against her previous attitude of wanting to return to the Drake Duchy. She had stayed by Su-yi's side every day, not leaving for a second. Su-yi had revealed to her that he wanted to cooperate with the Drake Duchy in terms of production magic machines, which had aroused her interest. There were countless magic machine companies in the surrounding countries, but other than New Flyer, the other companies were only producing household magic machines. There wasn't a single company that was involved in production magic machines. Although the main reason was that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce hadn't released the technology related to the production magic machines, a part of the reason was that the production magic machines required a company to have a high technological foundation. A normal magic machine company couldn't satisfy this demand at all. Not mentioning anything else, just the most basic magic thread rolling machine required technology that was completely different from household magic machines. To grasp this technology, even if New Flyer was willing to transfer it, the other companies would need to invest large amounts of money and manpower. Normal companies weren't willing to do this kind of thankless thing, but for the Drake Duchy, this was something that they couldn't ask for. Of course, Su-yi only said that he would cooperate with the Drake Duchy in terms of production magic machines. He didn't have any plans of handing over the production magic machine technology. This so-called cooperation was just to copy their previous cooperation. New Flyer would build a production magic machine factory in the Drake Duchy. Moreover, this production magic machine factory would only produce agricultural magic machines. It wouldn't involve other production magic machines. As for why Su-yi wanted to do this, of course it's because I'm in the Drake Duchy, isn't it? Princess Caroline revealed a smile as she said this with a proud look. Su-yi rolled his eyes at her. You don't have that much face. Although this choice did consider part of Princess Caroline, it wasn't because she was beautiful. It was because she had a good relationship with Su-yi, as well as the good cooperation they had before. But if one was to talk about the most important reason, it was completely because of the Drake Duchy's location. The Drake Duchy had a border with the Sac Kingdom to the west and a border with the Fok Kingdom to the northeast. These two countries were countries that didn't popularize magic machines yet, so they were new markets that had just been developed. New Flyer had already signed an agreement with the Sac Kingdom, so the Sac Kingdom would buy over 100,000 agricultural magic machines from New Flyer. The Fok Kingdom had already shown a strong interest in these agricultural magic machines. If they produced the agricultural magic machines from the New Flight Commerce main base and transported them over, it would take a large amount of time and transportation costs, which would increase the cost by quite a bit. If they built an agricultural magic machine factory in the Drake Duchy, it would be easier to satisfy the needs of these two kingdoms. Other than this, there was also a long-term consideration, which was the Mala Empire. According to the Marquis of Southgard's performance over the past few days, Su-yi felt that if nothing unexpected happened, he would start working with New Flyer after returning to the Mala Empire. Of the things that he was interested in New Flyer, one of the things he cared about the most was the agricultural magic machines. Building an agricultural magic machine factory in the Drake Duchy that was over 2,000 kilometers closer to the Mala Empire than the Principality of Constantine would help satisfy the strong demand of the Mala Empire. Sui didn't need to say this, but Princess Caroline could guess it. But she didn't care about this. The important thing was that New Flyer would really invest in an agricultural magic machine factory in the Drake Duchy. This was New Flyer's first time investing in a production magic machine factory with another country, which was a precedent. This meant that even if the Drake Duchy's relationship with New Flyer couldn't compare to the Lampari kingdoms, it was still better than the other countries. Among the countries to the southwest of Signs, New Flyer was already recognized as the best partner. Being able to receive special treatment from New Flyer was without a doubt a great piece of news for the Drake Duchy. So not only did Princess Caroline follow Sui every day, she also had a bright smile on her face. She even revealed an infatuated look in front of Steele. She had indeed done it on purpose. Other than showing Sui her special attitude, it was also to provoke Steele. This fellow had said that he was magnanimous before, but Princess Caroline didn't believe him. As a wife, how could she not mind seeing another woman pestering her husband? However, Steele's performance had completely disappointed her. Chapter 779. Count Will looked at the Banta City financial report in his hand and slightly knit his brows. This didn't mean that this financial report wasn't good-looking, rather the numbers were very beautiful. Anyone who saw this would be surprised. According to this financial report, Banta City's total income last month was 460,000 gold coins. It had already surpassed Anvilmar City and became the city with the highest income in the Lampari Kingdom. There was no other city that could compare. It had to be known, Anvilmar City was the capital of the Lampari Kingdom, so it was very natural for the kingdom to pay attention to it. Adding in the fact that most of the large nobles and large companies were gathered there, their income had always far surpassed that of the other cities in the kingdom. If time went back 8 years before the New Flyer appeared, Banta City's income would have been negative. They had to rely on subsidies from the kingdom's finances each year to barely survive. Although it wasn't the worst city in the kingdom, it was still at the bottom. They never thought that there would be a day when they could surpass Anvilmar City. However, in just 8 years, Banta City had achieved something that they never imagined before. There was no doubt that this was something that everyone in Banta City should be proud of. As the current city lord of Banta City, as well as the leader who had created the glory of Banta City over the past few years, Count Will was more qualified to be happy and proud. When he first saw this financial report, Count Will was indeed filled with joy and felt a deep sense of pride in his heart. But when he saw the normal-looking number at the back of the report, his mood instantly changed. This number was related to Banta City's monthly income growth. According to the data, Banta City's income last month was around 460,000 gold coins. Compared to March's income of around 440,000 gold coins, it was an increase of around 4%. For a Banta city of this scale, being able to increase by 4% in a month was already considered quite a good achievement. But Count Will clearly remembered that this number was 6% last month. It was 8% the month before last, and it was 9% the month before last. If one looked at the income of the last half a year, they would find that this number was decreasing month by month. This meant that Banta City's current revenue was growing slower and slower. Based on the current trend, by the end of the year, Banta City's revenue wouldn't increase by that much. In fact, it might even cause a regression. Impossible! Count Revel immediately shook his head, instantly denying the possibility in his heart. However, when he calmed down and thought about it seriously, he had to admit that this was a fact that he had to face. Banta City's development had clearly reached a bottleneck. It was very hard for Banta City to develop by leaps and bounds like when the magic machine industry had just risen. To solve this problem, other than strengthening Banta City's development in all directions, the most important thing was to invest in Banta City's pillar, the magic machine industry. After pacing in his office for around half an hour in thought, Count Will left the city lord's manor. He sat in his personal magic sedan and headed to the west side of Banta City. This new district was another new district of Banta City that had just been developed last year. According to Count Revel's plan, this new district would be a comprehensive district. It wouldn't be like the previous Banta City plan where each district was divided into different areas. In this comprehensive city area, there were already 3 hotels and many shops. On one side of the road, there were 2 different kinds of factories, and on the other side, the Amrit Chamber of Commerce had built a large number of residences. These 20-meter-tall 6-story residences were the new apartments that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce released. Because there was a complete water supply system and a water circulation system under the residences, as well as a complete sewer system, these residences were the most convenient residences in Banta City. At the same time, because the price wasn't high, being far from the price of the villas, it was very popular once it was released. Not far away from this residential area, there was also a large building rising from the ground. This building belonged to Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training Academy, so it was considered a product of the expansion of Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training Academy. The reason why it could occupy such a large and good location was because of Count Revel's support. Although this Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training Academy was founded by New Flyer, after New Flyer left Banta City and the Lampari Kingdom, this academy fell into the control of Banta City's City Lord Manor. When Count Revel took over as Banta City's City Lord, he didn't place much importance on this academy in the first 2 years, but starting last year, he began focusing on this academy. Not only did he give it land, he also invested large amounts of money. He recruited students from Banta City and the surrounding cities, causing the academy to expand by 4 to 5 times. Currently, there were more than 8,000 students in the academy. Apart from the majority of them who were focused on the various types of magic machineries, there were also more than 400 students who were directly involved in the research and study of magic machineries. This was a subject established by Count Revel. At the same time, Count Revel had ordered the Baron Ricto Magic Academy to send their students here to study magic machine theory. If it was before, of course no students would be interested in this kind of research, but with the popularity of magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries, not only were the students of the Baron Ricto Magic Academy interested in studying magic machine theory, even the young magicians of the Lampuri Royal Academy were interested in it. Compared to the Lampuri Royal Academy, Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training Academy had a very important advantage. It was that this academy was founded by New Flyer, so even if it was now under Banta City's name, Su-Yi had always paid attention to this academy. Not only did he provide training for New Flyer's skilled workers, he also provided the academy with a lot of basic magic machine theory, making it easier for the students to learn and grasp this knowledge. Count Revel had specially come here today to participate in a ceremony. The Frestec Chamber of Commerce would be donating a basic magic machine theory book written by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's Magic Research Facilities Chief Evita and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's Magic Machine Development Center's manager Camby, as well as several researchers and engineers of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. This book was the first true magic machine theory book. According to the information provided by the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, this book contained a very complete magic machine theory foundation. It could allow people who didn't have any magic machine knowledge at all to grasp the basics of magic machines after reading this book. This book wasn't important to New Flyer, but it was a very important book for everyone outside of New Flyer that participated in the magic machine industry. Because before this, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had only given the technology to other companies. This time, it was their first time sharing the theoretical system. So it could be said that this book didn't just have a strong practical meaning, it also had a strong symbolic meaning. The reason why New Flyer was far ahead of the other companies in terms of magic machine technology was mainly because they had an absolute advantage in terms of theory. The appearance of this book meant that New Flyer was willing to share their magic machine theory, which meant that the other companies would finally have a chance to catch up to New Flyer. Moreover, according to the information New Flyer had given Count Revel, although New Flyer would publish this book in the future, they would allow Banta City to be the first to receive it. They would only publish it in half a year. This meant that compared to other people and companies, Banta City had half a year more. This was clearly New Flyer taking special care of Banta City, so Count Revel was very grateful to Sue personally coming to this book awarding ceremony. But when Count Revel rushed to Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Skill School, he was surprised to find that it wasn't Sue who was here, but rather his wife Steele. Looking at Steele's clearly swollen stomach, Count Revel suppressed the questions in his heart. He first congratulated Steele before asking about Sue-Yi's whereabouts. "I'm very sorry, Sir Count. Sue-Yi had an urgent matter, so he had to cancel his trip to the book awarding ceremony. But he specially had me attend the ceremony in his place and apologize to Sir Count." "Urgent matter? Is it serious?" Count Revel asked with knit brows. With New Flyer's powerful influence in the surrounding countries, what urgent matter could make Sue-Yi change his trip? "It's not that serious, but he has to personally take care of it," Steele replied with a shake of her head. "It's like this." Count Revel's voice had a trace of undisguised disappointment and worry. Sue-Yi had always been a person who kept his promises. He didn't think that there was anything urgent that could force Sue-Yi to change his trip, so this meant that there was a very serious possibility. For Sue-Yi to not be willing to come to this important book awarding ceremony, perhaps Banta City wasn't that important in his mind. Chapter 780. It should be said that Count Will's guess was quite close to the truth. Although Banta City was a city with a special meaning to Sue-Yi, that was only in terms of his personal feelings. It made him consider Banta City a bit more when making decisions, giving Banta City some special care. But based on the actual situation, Banta City wasn't that important to Sue-Yi. The New Flyers Industries had already moved out of Banta City and they cooperated with the surrounding countries. Compared to this, although Banta City was still the most important magic machine industry city in the Lampari Kingdom, it couldn't keep up with the development of the New Flyer, so it couldn't affect the development of the New Flyer. But if it was said that Sue-Yi felt that Banta City wasn't that important, so he deliberately cancelled his trip and wasn't willing to come to the book-giving ceremony, that really was an injustice to him. The matter he encountered this time wasn't that serious, but other than him, there was no one else who could deal with it. This was because this matter involved the elves and in the entire New Flyer, other than him, the elves wouldn't completely trust any other humans. So when Steele appeared at the book-giving ceremony of the Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training School, Sue-Yi appeared in the northwest corner of the Black Rice Wasteland, just a step away from the Sac Kingdom's border. "Chairman Sue, these humans refuse to follow the agreement we signed and won't let us pass." One of the Moon Shadow Tribe's forest guards in charge of fighting, Donid, pointed at the Sac Kingdom soldiers in the distance and angrily said, "This is the agreement we signed with the highest oath and they actually aren't willing to follow it. Could it be that humans aren't willing to keep their promises? Pay attention to your words." The Moon Shadow Tribe's forest guard Captain Phelps reprimanded Donid before giving Sue-Yi an apologetic smile. "Chairman Sue, Donid is still young and doesn't know anything, please forgive her." Sue-Yi looked at Donid, who had an awkward look, because she realized she had said something wrong. This fellow was already 76 years old, she was twice his age, so how could she be young? Of course, for the elves who lived for several hundred years, this was indeed an age where she didn't know anything. What did they say? Sue-Yi ignored Donid and asked Phelps. "We came here a week ago to take this territory, but we were stopped by these fellows who called themselves the Sac Kingdom's loyal guards. I told them that we had signed an agreement with the Sac Kingdom and this territory belonged to our Moon Shadow tribe, but they said that they didn't know about this agreement and didn't receive any notice, so they firmly didn't allow us to take a single step into the Sac Kingdom's territory. Oh? Then have you tried it before? Sui asked. Yes, but when we tried it, the other side took out their weapons and didn't hesitate to fight, so I could only retreat. Sui looked at the Sac Kingdom soldiers and estimated that there were around 2,000 of them. Although it wasn't considered much, Phelps and the others only came to take this territory and weren't prepared to fight, so they only brought 100 forest guards. In terms of battle strength, 100 forest guards without any military magic machines could only deal with 1,000 human soldiers. They were helpless against 2,000 human soldiers. Seeing Phelps look behind him with an expectant look, Sui shook his head. It's not time for the company's guards to move out yet, let me investigate the situation first. Sui came out of the crowd and cast a wind spell on himself, instantly flying in front of the Sac Kingdom soldiers. Seeing Sui come over, the Sac Kingdom soldiers immediately tightened their grip on their weapons and pointed them at him. This is the Sac Kingdom's border. No one is allowed to enter without permission. This magician on the other side, if you don't stop, we will attack you. There was a stern warning that came from the square formation, and Sui had stopped 30 meters away from the first row of soldiers. Strictly speaking, Sui had already crossed the Sac Kingdom's border, but those soldiers didn't make a move. Sui looked over the soldiers and finally his eyes fell onto a Sac Kingdom soldier in the middle who was dressed differently, looking like an officer. I am the New Flyers chairman, Sui. I'm here to give you an announcement. According to the agreement signed by our new flyer, the Principality of Constantine, the Moon Shadow tribe, and the Sac Kingdom's parliament, the land you're standing on belongs to the Moon Shadow tribe. I have been entrusted by the Moon Shadow tribe to give you a final warning. You have half a day to leave this territory, otherwise the Moon Shadow tribe will reserve the right to make a move against you. Sui deliberately used a sound amplification spell to not only spread to the Sac Kingdom soldiers, it also reached the ears of the Moon Shadow tribe elves in the back. Hearing his words, not only were the Sac Kingdom soldiers surprised, even the forest guards of the Moon Shadow tribe were surprised. They thought that Chairman Su was going to reason with the other side, but they never thought that he would directly give them a final warning. But they didn't think of doing this at all because the two sides weren't equal in strength, so they didn't dare make a move. Moreover, Chairman Su had brought less than 200 new flyer guards this time. Even if the new flyer guards had a shocking battle strength, wouldn't it be hard for them to defeat 2,000 Sac Kingdom soldiers? Then again, they had reason on this matter, so they didn't need to use such intense methods to deal with it. As long as they negotiated with the Sac Kingdom, in order for the Sac Kingdom to smoothly obtain enough fertilizer from the Moon Shadow tribe, while also cooperating with the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, they would solve this problem no matter what. Fersen as the forest guard captain could understand this, but that didn't mean the other forest guards could. For example, when Donoid heard Su Yi's announcement, he was first surprised before his face filled with excitement. Chairman Su is too domineering. He doesn't seem like a wretched human at all. Fersen knit his brows to look at him. Pay attention to your words, Donoid. Donoid stuck out his tongue, not caring at all. Fersen shook his head and looked into the distance in worry. He didn't know how the Sac Kingdom soldiers would react to Su Yi's words. If the other side had a strong reaction, they would have to prepare for battle. The Sac Kingdom soldiers were silent for a bit before there was a deep and loud cold snort that came from them. Humph! Final warning? So what if you are the new Flyers Chairman Sui? We are the loyal guards of the kingdom. We won't allow the people of other countries, including the elves, to tarnish our sacred land. Chairman Su, I urge you to leave immediately, otherwise don't blame us for being impolite. Impolite? Su-yi revealed a grin and shook his head. You mean that you're not planning on leaving? Nonsense. Alright, I'll give you one more chance. I'll count to 10, and if you don't make a move, my warning will take effect. That officer gave a cold laugh. He looked at Su-yi and didn't say anything. Fersen in the back looked at Su-yi with a bit of worry, as well as a bit of doubt in his eyes. Why did Chairman Su use such a fierce method to deal with this matter? Although this was in line with the way the elves did things, it was clearly different from the smooth way the humans did things. Elder Lysania had always taught him and the other elves of the Moon Shadow tribe to learn how humans did things, so it was easier to get along with them. Why was it that Chairman Su, who was a leader among humans, was acting like a brute? 10. Su-yi didn't waste words and directly began to count down. His voice spread across the plains, causing everyone to raise a brow as they focused on Su-yi. 9. That officer continued to look at Su-yi with a cold smile. His eyes were filled with disdain, clearly not believing that Su-yi would dare make a move. 8. Fersen opened his mouth, wanting to stop Su-yi, but thinking of what Elder Lysania had said to him before leaving, he could only swallow his words back down. 7. Doniad's eyes opened wide as she excitedly looked at Su-yi, who was facing 2,000 soldiers. She thought that Chairman Su was really different from other humans. It was no wonder the Lord Elder praised him in front of all her clansmen. 6, 5, 4, 3. The cold smile on the officer's face slowly disappeared as he looked at Su-yi with a trace of disbelief in his eyes. Could it be that this fellow really dared to make a move? 2. Fersen raised his right hand and the 100 Moon Shadow Tribe's forest guards all slightly bent down, preparing to fight. 1. There was a sharp look in the officer's eyes as he raised his right hand, preparing to fall down at any moment. The Sack Kingdom soldiers all tightly held their weapons as they stared right at Su-yi. No one noticed that of the 200 Frestek Chamber of Commerce guards that Su-yi brought, not a single one of them had prepared to fight. Time's up. After Su-yi said these 3 words, he turned his head slightly and looked over the 2,000 Sack Kingdom soldiers in front of him. He said with a slight nod, "Very good, since you won't listen to my final warning, don't blame me." After saying this, Su-yi slowly rose up and after a while, he was already 10 meters above the ground. The Sack Kingdom officers and soldiers looked up at Su-yi, feeling a bit strange. This fellow had already finished counting down, but he didn't give the order to attack to the elves and the guards behind him. Could it be that he only dared to threaten them verbally? After that, they found that there was an extra sun above their heads. Chapter 781. In the Sack Kingdom's Army Headquarters Staff Department, the atmosphere was heavy. Ivy? Joao looked over his colleagues before finally looking at the Staff Department's chief, Benjamin Dirk. On Dirk's face, the minister, who was known as the brain of the General Staff and had always been known to be confident at all times, had a gloomy expression on his face. It was obvious that he was not in a good mood. This was understandable. After receiving the news from the southwest, it was impossible for anyone to be in a good mood. The Spirit Turtle Regiment that was best at defense had actually suffered a defeat in the kingdom. The one who defeated them wasn't a particularly strong regiment, but rather a single person. Of course, this person was a powerful great magician. Facing this kind of existence that far surpassed the understanding of mortals, the Spirit Turtle Regiment had only sent out a division of 2,000 people. Because of this, they had suffered a defeat, so strictly speaking, it wasn't something that couldn't be accepted. But the problem was the identity of this great magician. The great magician who had defeated the Spirit Turtle Regiment by himself was actually the New Flyers chairman, Su-yi. Su-yi was without a doubt one of the most famous people in the southwest countries of the Signs continent, but he was one of the few people who had this kind of fame and prestige as a merchant. Whenever others thought of him, the first thing they thought of was his status as the Frestek Chamber of Commerce's chairman. They always forgot a fact. which was that he was a magician with quite a bit of strength. The Sac Kingdom's army headquarters didn't forget this fact, but they never would have thought that Su-Yi had already become a powerful great magician. Moreover, based on the reports that came back, the strength he displayed had already surpassed a primary-grade great magician, far surpassing people's imaginations. Su-Yi as the New Flyers chairman already had a strong weight in people's hearts, so adding in his identity as a great magician, it simply made people feel despair. In the history of the Signs continent, there would occasionally be magicians who would go into business and there would be merchants who would learn magic after finding their talent as a magician, but there had never been anyone like Su-Yi, reaching such a high level in both aspects. The General Staff Department had thought of countless ways to deal with Su-Yi, including assassination. But now that Su-Yi had displayed the strength of a great magician, it immediately declared that it was almost impossible to assassinate him. After becoming a great magician, one would be able to grasp spatial teleportation magic. As long as Su-Yi wasn't looking for death, it was almost impossible for him to be assassinated. The only possibility was that they had invited a super magus to deal with him, and he would be killed without being able to resist. However, in the entire southwest corner of Signs, only Mage Carmilla from the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild was registered as a magister. Everyone knew that Mentor Carmilla was the grandfather of Su-Yi's wife, Steel. Of course, he wouldn't do anything to Su-Yi. So once the news of Su-Yi becoming a great magician came out, it basically declared that it was impossible for the Sac Kingdom to assassinate Su-Yi. But like this, the General Staff Department's plan to deal with Su-Yi was greatly limited. The Sac Kingdom's General Staff Department had done their research on the new flyer and confirmed a fact. It was that the value of Su-Yi alone was equal to the value of the new flyer, and even surpassed it. To deal with the new flyer, they had to find a way to deal with Su-Yi. Of course, Su-Yi and the new flyer weren't the main point. The main point was that Su-Yi and the new flyer supported the Lampari Kingdom, which was what gave the Sac Kingdom a headache. Those pieces of trash in the kingdom's parliament. If it wasn't for them interfering, we could have sent more people. How could they have been defeated by Su-Yi alone? A young staff officer suddenly angrily roared out. The other officers of the general staff in the room all looked at him with strange expressions on their faces. A young staff officer looked at the staff officer who spoke before and said with a cold snort, "You still don't understand? This Su-Yi is a great magician. So what if we send more people? We can't do anything to him at all right? But at least we can defend our territory. Every time I think about how the sacred land that originally belonged to our kingdom has been taken over by the filthy elves, I feel very unhappy." The young officer suddenly slapped Benjamin Bymean's face. The young staff officer suddenly gave a salute to Dirk. "Sir Minister, I request the army headquarters to send more troops to the southwest province and take back the territory that belongs to us." "Benjamin?" Dirk looked at him and calmly said, "After the kingdom's parliament signed the agreement with the new flyer and those elves, that territory no longer belongs to our kingdom. So strictly speaking, what Su-Yi said in front of the Spirit Turtle Regiment wasn't wrong at all. It wasn't them who invaded our territory, it was us who invaded the territory of those elves." "Impossible!" The young staff officer angrily roared out. "I definitely won't accept this damn agreement. Our Sac Kingdom has only occupied other people's territory since we were founded, we have never been invaded by others before. Those damn fellows in the kingdom's parliament are tarnishing the honor of our army headquarters. They are also betraying the entire Sac Kingdom." "Benjamin?" Dirk slightly knit his brows and waved his hand. "I understand your anger. As for this agreement, as a soldier of the kingdom, I also feel shame. But this is the decision of the kingdom's parliament and as soldiers, we can only obey." "But there are no buts." Benjamin Dirk emphasized his words. "Obeying orders is the duty of a soldier. The young staff officer's face turned red, but he could only tightly close his mouth, not daring to say another word. Benjamin? Dirk's face sunk as he looked over everyone in the room. Finally his eyes fell onto Ivy Jojo, who was standing on the outside. Jojo. Manager Jojo, how is the research on the military magic machines going? Everyone's eyes fell onto Ivy Jojo. As for Joao, no one understood why the minister would ask him the first question. Ivy? Jojo was the chief of staff of the Hungry Wolf Regiment. His position wasn't worse than Minister Dirk's. Even if he was being stared at by all these people, of course he wouldn't be nervous at all. After thinking about it, he replied, "There should be some progress, but it's far from enough. Moreover, the most important problem is that we don't know what level the military magic machines in the new flyer are at, so we can't judge the level of the military magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom's army." Benjamin? Dirk nodded before giving a sigh. It's a pity that we sent the Hungry Wolf Regiment this time to force the new flyer guards to make a move and test their level, but we never thought that Su-Yi would be at the Great Magician level. Moreover, we never thought that he would personally make a move, so we couldn't achieve our goal. The staff officers in the room looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. So the army headquarters had sent the Spirit Turtle Regiment to the territory sold to the elves by the kingdom's parliament. It wasn't to protect the territory, but rather for another goal. But sending 2,000 soldiers of the Spirit Turtle Regiment just to force the new flyer guards to make a move? Just to test their level? Wasn't this thinking too highly of the new flyer guards, Ivy? Joao agreed with Chief Dirk's sigh as he also said with a sigh, "That's right, if we miss this chance, it will be very hard to obtain accurate information on the new flyer guards. It will also be very hard to guess the true strength of the new flyer guards and determine the level of the military magic machines in the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce." Benjamin? Dirk knit his brows to think before continuing. "The information we can obtain now is from the internal strife in the Principality of Constantine a few months ago, when the new flyer guards made a move. But because their records are too simple, the new flyer guards easily defeated their opponents each time, so it's hard for us to make an accurate judgment. The subordinates of the lords in the Principality of Constantine naturally can't compare to our Sac Kingdom's soldiers," Ivy Joao said with a nod. "But we really need information about the military magic machines right now," said Benjamin. Benjamin Dirk turned to look at a normal-looking middle-aged staff officer in the corner, who no one would notice if he was thrown into a crowd. "Yuri, your side needs to be strengthened. Remember, no matter the cost, you have to obtain the information we need. Do you understand what I mean?" The middle-aged staff officer nodded. "Yes, Sir Chief, I will work harder." Benjamin? Dirk turned to Ivy Joao. "Joao, Manager Joao, you have to pay more attention to the research on your side. It isn't exaggerated to say that the fate of our Sac Kingdom is in the hands of your research." Many young staff officers in the staff room knit their brows as they looked at Ivy Joao. Joao's eyes were a bit unconvinced. This fellow's military magic machine research department had been working for so long, but they still hadn't had any result. Why did the army headquarters and the kingdom's parliament place so much importance on them, investing so much manpower and resources in them? To these young staff officers, although the new flyer's military magic machines were very powerful in the rumors, they hadn't personally seen it. They didn't think that just relying on these military magic machines could decide the fate of the Sokovia Kingdom. Ivy Joao? Joao ignored the gazes of these young people and slowly said in a deep voice, "Sir Chief, I understand the blame I bear more than anyone, please be assured." Benjamin? Dirk nodded. He looked down at the map of the Sac Kingdom on the table, and after thinking for a bit, he reached out to point at the southwest corner of the map. "I will propose to the army headquarters to station the Spirit Turtle Regiment here to prevent the elves from infiltrating the kingdom. Do you have any objections to this?" Everyone looked at each other in surprise. It was normal to guard against the elves who had invaded their home, but sending the entire Spirit Turtle Regiment. Wasn't this making a big fuss over nothing? Chapter 782. Su-yi naturally couldn't stay in the territory the Moon Shadow tribe obtained from the Sac Kingdom because there were many things waiting for him to take care of. But before he left behind the 200 Frestec Chamber of Commerce guards he brought with him. With the powerful battle strength of the guards and the Moon Shadow tribe's forest guards, it was enough to deal with no more than 5,000 normal Sac Kingdom soldiers. Of course, if the Sac Kingdom's reaction to this matter was too strong, Su-yi had already told the Moon Shadow tribe's forest guard Captain Phelps ahead of time. If he judged that they couldn't resist, he shouldn't hesitate and immediately choose to retreat. This place wasn't far from the Black Rice Wasteland, so as long as they retreated into the Black Rice Wasteland, whether it was going east into Black Rice City or west into the Black Rice Harbor, it would guarantee their safety. After giving these instructions, Su-yi was planning on returning to the Principality of Constantine, but he never thought that when he passed by Black Rice City, he would see Count Will rushing over. Count Will had specially come to Black Rice City to wait for Su-yi's return. He had brought a personal letter from Her Majesty Seveni. After Su-yi read the letter, he only hesitated a bit before deciding to head to Anvilmar City with Count Will to receive Her Majesty Seveni's summons. Black Rice City was over 600 kilometers away from Anvilmar City, but with the convenience of the magic sedans and the road network in the Lampari Kingdom, Su-yi and Count Will set off in the morning and arrived in Anvilmar City in the evening. Chairman Su, it's been a long time since you've been to Anvilmar City, right? Count Will suddenly asked Su-yi. Su-yi looked at the familiar Anvilmar City walls through the window, and after thinking about it, he found that Count Will wasn't wrong. The last time he came to Anvilmar City was when Seveni had just given birth. Although he had been running around and often left the Principality of Constantine, he didn't have a chance to come to Anvilmar City at all. If one looked back in time, one would find that after Seveni took the throne, he came to Anvilmar City less and less, so he had less and less contact with Seveni. The most contact between the two of them was through letters. Although Su-yi was doing this on purpose, thinking about it, it seemed like he didn't meet Seveni often enough. It was no wonder Seveni's letter asking Su-yi to come to Anvilmar City had a trace of sadness in it. Perhaps she had noticed something from Su-yi's actions. Thinking of this, Su-yi felt a trace of apology and regret in his heart. He had deliberately reduced contact with Seveni before because he was worried about their identities. He was afraid that if they interacted too much, there would be things that he wasn't willing to mix in and it would taint the pure relationship between him and Seveni. But now that he thought about it, he found that his way of doing things was very wrong. His and Seveni's identities were already set and couldn't be changed. As long as the two of them continued to be in contact, there would be things related to their identities that couldn't be avoided. If he wanted to avoid these things, there was only one possibility, which was to completely cut off all contact with Seveni. But this was clearly impossible. Not to mention New Flyer having a close relationship with the Lampari Kingdom, just based on their relationship as friends, Su-yi wasn't willing to cut off all contact with Seveni. So after thinking this through, Su-yi felt that his way of doing things was not only wrong, it was also stupid. Based on what did he have no confidence in maintaining a normal relationship with Seveni? Even if there were some unavoidable interactions between them because of their identities, Su-yi could do his best to separate these things and separate business from private matters. While maintaining the private relationship between them, he could also maintain the good relationship between New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom. Even if there were conflicts between New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom in the future, it wouldn't affect the private relationship between him and Seveni. Su-yi was confident in himself and he was confident in Seveni. Of course, if he couldn't do it, it meant that he wasn't capable enough and he couldn't blame others. Moreover, no matter what, it was much better than him deliberately reducing his interactions with Seveni. It has indeed been a long time. Speaking of this, I only saw His Highness when he was born, so he should be half a year old now, right? How about it, Count Revel, have you seen His Highness? What does he look like now? Sui asked Count Revel. Hearing Sui ask about His Highness, Count Revel looked at Sui with a strange gaze. After pausing for a bit, he replied, I also saw His Highness 2 months ago when I returned to Anvil City to see Her Majesty. He looked very healthy and lively. I don't know if he looks like 70 or not. If he does, he will definitely be a very handsome prince when he grows up, Sui said with a smile. Count Revel's lips couldn't help twitching. This Chairman Su, did he deliberately bring up this topic? Recently, there had been a rumor in the Lampari Kingdom's noble circle that His Highness father was this Chairman Su in front of him. Count Revel had scoffed at this rumor before, but when he saw Her Majesty last time, he had carefully looked over His Highness and found that His Highness looked similar to Sui. Now that he heard Sui sigh, Count Revel seriously looked over Sui's face. At the same time, he thought of His Highness and found that the two faces were becoming more and more similar. Could it be that the rumor is true? Count Revel had this shocking guess in his heart, and he felt a strong sense of absurdity. He had guessed countless times who Her Majesty's lover was, but he never thought that it would be Sui. Of course, from a serious point of view, this guess was very likely to be true. Everyone knew that the Queen had been in close contact with Sui when she was still a princess and had expressed her admiration for Sui more than once, so it was normal for her to be interested in him. After the Queen took over the throne, the new flyer under Sui's name gradually expanded and became a powerful force that could influence the situation of several surrounding countries. If they could maintain a good relationship with Sui, then the Lampari Kingdom and New Flyer would be able to maintain a good working relationship. As long as the Lampari Kingdom could obtain the support of New Flyer, then it wouldn't take long for the Lampari Kingdom to become the most powerful country in the surrounding countries. Although this speculation was somewhat disrespectful to Her Majesty, it was precisely because of this that it could explain why Her Majesty would choose to have a child out of wedlock, and why she would not reveal the shocking matter of the prince's father to everyone. Because Sui was already married, the Queen. Strictly speaking, she was actually a third party. Count Revel carefully observed Sui's expression and couldn't see anything strange. This made him feel very strange. No matter how unfathomable Sui was, there was no need for him to suddenly mention the prince in front of him and put on a show because it was meaningless. The only explanation was that Sui didn't know about this at all. But if this was true, then the truth was too shocking. Thinking of this possibility, Count Revel's expression couldn't help changing. If the guess of Her Majesty before was true and Sui really didn't know about this, it could only prove that Her Majesty truly loved Sui. That was why she did this kind of impulsive thing that a young girl in her spring period would do. But true love? Count Revel's expression became very strange. Sui was the chairman of the powerful New Flyer that could affect the surrounding countries, so it was unknown how many women were willing to throw themselves at him. Her Majesty 70 was the ruler of the Lampari Kingdom, controlling the fate of the Lampari Kingdom. She was an important person who could affect the entire Lampari Kingdom with a single move. Between these two people, what true love was there? What? Is there something wrong? Sui noticed the change in expression on Count Revel's face and couldn't help asking this in a strange voice. He was just asking about His Highness, so why did Count Revel look like he had seen a ghost? No, nothing. Count Revel came back to his senses and quickly waved his hand as he said with a forced smile, I just suddenly thought of something and felt that I had to ask Chairman Su about it. What is it? Sui was even more curious. They had been together for 8 to 9 hours, so why didn't he ask before? Why did he have to wait until they were about to enter Anvil City? Chairman Su, I've heard. That your new flyer has reached an agreement with the Drake Duchy, planning to invest in 2 agricultural magic machine factories in the Drake Duchy? Sui slightly narrowed his eyes. He wasn't surprised that Count Revel knew about this matter, because Princess Caroline had stayed in the Principality of Constantine for close to a month before leaving. This couldn't be hidden from anyone. Moreover, Sui didn't plan on hiding this matter, so it wasn't strange that it was revealed. What he was surprised about was that Count Revel was asking this question and not 70 like he expected. Thinking about it, Sui replied with a nod. Yes, if nothing unexpected happens, the 2 factories will be built next month, and they will be in production by the end of the year. Are you in this much of a rush? Count Revel asked. Pretty much. Because these 2 factories were built to prepare for the Mala Empire, it's better to prepare as soon as possible. Sui replied. Hearing Sui mention the Mala Empire, Count Revel was stunned. Although the report said that when Princess Caroline went to the Principality of Constantine, there was an unknown middle-aged noble with her, no one knew what this middle-aged noble did. Now that Sui took the initiative to reveal this, he knew that he came from the Mala Empire. Moreover, based on the meaning in Sui's words, New Flyer had already made contact with the Mala Empire and had even reached an agreement. This was a very important piece of news, but Sui had said it so easily. Count Will was stunned for a moment before ecstasy surged in his heart. With his understanding of Sui, since Sui took the initiative to reveal this information, it was very likely that this information was related to the Lampari Kingdom. And in these inconspicuous connections, it was very likely that there were countless desired and unexpected opportunities hidden in them. Chapter 783. After entering Anvilmar City, Count Will went against Sui's expectations. He didn't directly bring him to the palace to see 70, rather he brought him to a place he was very familiar with, the former Banta City Anvilmar Clubhouse, which was actually the residence of the former Banta City City Lord, Count Sean Samo. When he came out of the magic sedan, Sui saw Count Samo standing at the entrance of the residence, looking over at him with a smile. Beside him was Manager Ram, who Sui was very familiar with. Sui quickly moved forward and came in front of Count Samo, reaching out his hands to tightly shake Count Samo's hand. Lord Count, when did you come back? As the New Flyer gradually became stronger, as the chairman of the New Flyer, Sui had become an important person. He no longer used honorifics when addressing other nobles like before. Even in front of Count Will, who was also a count, he used you to address him as an equal. But only when facing Count Sean Samo, he couldn't help feeling a trace of respect in his heart. The New Flyer being able to smoothly develop in Banta City couldn't do without the full support of Count Samo, who was the city lord back then. If it wasn't for him, even if the New Flyer didn't go bankrupt, it would have been hard for them to move forward. At the same time, whenever Count Samo saw Sui, his heart was filled with joy. He had been Banta City's city lord for over 10 years and didn't have any achievements before. But when Sui and the New Flyer appeared, there was a heaven-shaking change in Banta City. It made the normal Banta City not only become the most famous city in the Lampari Kingdom, it also became the city of magic machines, in the hearts of countless people in the surrounding countries. The citizens of Banta City greatly benefited from this, and he as the Lord City Lord also benefited greatly. If nothing unexpected happened, he would have spent the rest of his life as Banta City's City Lord and wouldn't have risen in status at all. But because of the appearance of the New Flyer, Banta City's strong development, making him as the Lord City Lord a powerful person that all the nobles of the Lampari Kingdom looked at with admiration. When Lampuri XIII was still on the throne, he had been transferred to one of the most important cities in the Northeast Province, Seoul City, as the City Lord. He had become one of the City Lords of one of the most important cities in the Lampari Kingdom, entering the highest circle of nobles. Before the great changes in the Lampari Kingdom, Lampuri XIII had given him the command of the kingdom's 3rd garrison army, making him the only city lord in the Lampari kingdom who could control the kingdom's garrison army. After the great changes in the kingdom, when Her Highness Seveni ascended to the throne, she didn't take back his command of the kingdom's 3rd garrison army. The current Count Sean Samo was a very powerful person in the Lampari kingdom's circle of nobles. Moreover, with Her Majesty's trust in him, he wasn't at a disadvantage against any of the nobles in the kingdom. All of this came from Su-yi and the new flyer he had created. Because of this close and complicated relationship, when the two shook hands, the smiles on their faces were incomparably sincere. I came back a few days ago to report to Her Majesty about the situation in Seoul City. Count Samo replied with a smile before asking back, Sui, you came in a rush this time, so how many days can you stay here? It depends on Her Majesty. If she wants me to stay a few more days, I'll listen to her arrangements. Sui replied with a faint smile. Count Samo looked at Sui in surprise. Aren't you busy during this time? How could that be possible? I'm about to die from being busy. Sui waved his hand. But this time I've decided to sit down with Her Majesty and have a chat. Let's get to know each other. I haven't seen Her Majesty in a long time. I wonder how she's been recently. Hearing the words, get to know each other, Count Revel, who was walking behind Sui, had a slight change in expression. His gaze looking at Sui became incomparably strange again. But Sui and Count Samo were being led by Manager Ram into the courtyard, so no one noticed anything strange about him. Count Samo heard Suyi's response and broke out in laughter. He reached out to pat Suyi's shoulder and said, Good! You should get to know Her Majesty more. When your new flyer was still in Banta City, you and Her Majesty were like good friends who were together when you had nothing to do. Now that you've become estranged, this really shouldn't be the case. Seeing Count Samo lecture him like an elder, Sui didn't refute him and just nodded with a faint smile. When they entered the courtyard, Sui looked at the familiar surroundings and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, Everything has changed over the years, but this courtyard hasn't changed at all. Count Samo revealed a faint smile. I'm old, I don't like changes. Sui, since you suddenly came here, you shouldn't have found a place to stay. How about you stay here since you're very familiar with this place? Sui thought for a bit before agreeing with a nod. Towards Suyi's arrival, Count Samo was already prepared. They just sat there chatting for a bit before being invited to dinner. After a meal that wasn't considered too sumptuous, Count Levi took the chance to leave. Count Samo invited Sui to the study in the courtyard, and the two sat down across from each other. Count Samo looked in the direction of the royal palace before turning to Sui to say, Sui, do you know why I came to see you before Her Majesty? You're here. Sui revealed a doubtful look as he looked at Count Samo. Count Samo was silent for a bit before suddenly saying with a sigh, Actually, the key is what you said before dinner. Sui, you really should get to know Her Majesty better. I'm not talking about the friendship between partners, but the pure friendship between the two of you. In my heart, Her Majesty has always been my good friend. This has never changed. Sui said seriously. I believe you. But if I'm not wrong, you're intentionally diluting the relationship between you and Her Majesty, right? Count Samo asked again. Sui looked at Count Samo in shock. He didn't expect him to see through his thoughts. Count Samo smiled faintly. Don't be surprised. I'm an old man, of course I've experienced more than a young man like you. It's not strange for me to see this. Sui was silent. He couldn't admit this, but he couldn't deny it either. Count Samo seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He smiled and waved his hand. Of course, this isn't the main point. The main point is that Sui, you don't have to do this. Do you know that I've watched Her Majesty grow up since she was young? She was very intelligent since she was young, and His Majesty Lampuri XIII placed importance on her, but because she was part of the royal family, she was under a lot of pressure, so I rarely saw her reveal a happy smile. But after meeting you, I've found that she is often very happy. Su Yi's heart trembled. When he thought of when the new flyer was still in Banta City and Banta City's city lord was still Samo Count Samo, Seveni often came to Banta City to meet him for various matters. The two of them chatted together, and it was indeed a very happy time. But with the great changes in the Lampuri kingdom, Seveni had no choice but to take the throne and become a queen, so she never came back. The reason why I'm saying this to you is because I treat myself as your senior. I don't want to see you make some wrong choices and make both sides feel sad. Of course, I don't know what you're thinking, Su Yi. I just know that when I saw Her Majesty during this time, there wasn't a single smile on her face. Count Samo said. Su Yi was silent for a bit before revealing a forced smile and shaking his head. Sir Count, I'm already aware of this and will pay attention to solving it. The reason why I came to Anvilmar City this time and decided to ignore everything else and stay here for a few days was for this. Is that so? That would be great. Count Samo suddenly stood up and pressed down on the wall of the study. After a series of rumbling sounds, the wall of the study started to move, revealing a well-hidden secret room. Su Yi looked in a daze, but he found that the secret room was completely dark and he couldn't see clearly at all. But after that, two figures slowly appeared from the secret room and walked out step by step. The person walking in front had a familiar warm smile that Su Yi was familiar with. Although his face had clearly changed compared to when they first met 6 years ago, becoming much more mature and steady, as well as having a natural dignity, this smile didn't change at all. It still made people feel very calm and assured when they saw it. This unique and warm smile naturally only belonged to Seveni. Seeing Seveni slowly walk out of the secret room with that familiar smile, Su Yi suddenly had an illusion. It was like he hadn't seen Seveni in a long time, and Seveni had just walked out of a distant space crack. Seveni stopped less than 2 steps away from Su Yi and looked at Su Yi. The breath coming out of her nostrils almost hit Su Yi's face. The two silently looked at each other for a bit before Su Yi revealed an awkward smile. Your Majesty, call me Seveni. Seveni cut off Su Yi without any courtesy. Su Yi was surprised before rubbing his nose and saying with a bitter laugh, All right, Seveni, long time no see. It has indeed been a long time. Su Yi, I want to see you every day, but that is clearly impossible. Then taking a step back, being able to talk to you every day isn't bad. So, I hope that your new flyer can set up enough magic signal towers in our Lampari kingdom to guarantee that I can talk to you in the Principality of Constantine at any time in the royal palace. Su Yi never thought that the first thing Seveni said to him after meeting was about magic signal towers. Chapter 784. At the beginning of October, New Flyer suddenly announced that they would be cooperating with the Lampari Kingdom on 3 projects. The first project was related to the magic signal towers. According to the contract signed between New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom, New Flyer would be building over 100 magic signal towers in the Lampari Kingdom. With the 50 magic signal towers that New Flyer would be building on the Black Rice Wasteland, they would form a magic signal transmission line from the Principality of Constantine to the Principality of Constantine's new flight commerce main base to Anvilmar City. According to the information the Frestec Chamber of Commerce revealed, as long as this transmission line was finished, in theory, even if people were in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's main base, they could use the magic communicator to talk to people in Anvilmar City that was close to 1,000 kilometers away. But at the same time, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce announced another matter. It was that because of the limitations of the magic wave technology, this long-distance communication couldn't be opened to the public yet. So after this line was built, it would only be used for limited conversations between people. Although New Flyer didn't give a clear explanation, everyone guessed that this magic signal transmission line, which was also called a communication line by New Flyer, was to allow New Flyer's chairman Su-E and the Lampari Kingdom's Queen Seveni to easily talk to each other. But to build 150 magic signal towers at once, New Flyer had announced that they were investing over 4 million gold coins, but it was just to make it easier for Su-E to talk to Her Majesty Seveni. This was a bit too extravagant. Moreover, it was different from the gossip that normal people paid attention to. There were many people in the Lampari Kingdom who talked about how the New Flyer's magic signal towers were obstructed in the Principality of Constantine and how they had to use the New Flyer's guards to suppress the nobles who opposed them. Because of this, they objected to the cooperation between the Lampari Kingdom and New Flyer. The nobles in the Principality of Constantine objected to New Flyer building magic signal towers in their territories because they were worried that New Flyer's magic signal towers were similar to the infamous magic towers that could control people's thoughts from thousands of years ago. Although New Flyer explained this by saying that the magic signal towers were different from the magic towers and didn't have this kind of terrifying ability, this didn't make people believe it. After the newspapers in the Principality of Constantine reported this matter, there were many voices of opposition in the kingdom. However, in the next few days, the Sorcerers' Guild of the Lampari Kingdom made a statement in the Anvil Times and the Lampari Weekly. They said that the Sorcerers' Guild had done a detailed evaluation of the magic signal towers that New Flyer was about to build in the Lampari Kingdom. They confirmed that the magic array on the magic signal towers was a trivial 4th-grade magic array and it was a very normal elemental magic array. It didn't have any terrifying ability to control people's minds, so it wasn't related to the magic towers that people were worried about. At the same time, the great magicians of the Lampari Kingdom, including the Sorcerers' Guild's chairman Palms Aaron and great magician Eisenkel, had clearly stated in an interview with the Lampari Weekly that they were paying attention to the New Flyer's actions in the Lampari Kingdom. Moreover, in consideration of the benefits of the kingdom, they would supervise them. The two said that up to this point, New Flyer had been focused on promoting magic machines and didn't try to control people's minds at all. Not to mention that New Flyer had always supported the Lampari Kingdom, so people didn't need to worry at all. Rather, when it came to the people who doubted the magic signal towers, the two refuted them at the same time, saying that they were measuring the stature of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. The cooperation between New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom had brought large benefits to New Flyer, while also promoting the rapid development of the Lampari Kingdom, allowing many people in the kingdom to benefit from this. This could be seen from the improvement in the lives of the people in the Lampari Kingdom in the past few years. Moreover, the two also proposed a new point of view. They said that with the appearance of New Flyer, there would be a new trend, which was that the continent would enter a new era of magic machines. After this, the lives of the people of the continent would be affected by the existence of all kinds of magic machines. With this trend, people didn't need to resist it. Rather, they worked hard to change their minds and actively accept it. As for the statements of the Sorcerers' Guild and the two great magicians, there were many people who felt that the Sorcerers' Guild and the two great magicians were closely related to Su-E and the New Flyer. Both sides also had many benefits, so the conclusion they gave couldn't be trusted. But the Sorcerers' Guild and the two great magicians had incomparable authority in the Lampari Kingdom when it came to magic. Since they said there was no problem and no one could refute them. So the Lampari Kingdom's parliament quickly announced that the Lampari Kingdom had already begun preparing for this cooperation with the New Flyer. It was estimated that this communication line would be finished by the end of next year. The second project wasn't related to magic machine manufacturing. It was a cooperation between the New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom to open a school together. These schools naturally wouldn't be magic schools. They would be like Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training School, schools that specialized in learning about magic machines. According to the announced data, the New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom would be building 17 magic machine industry training schools in the Lampari Kingdom in 3 years, covering the entire Lampari Kingdom. Every person who was willing to work in the magic machine industry could choose a school to train in. Moreover, just like Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training School, these 17 Magic Machine Industry Training Schools would also reduce tuition fees to ensure that students with normal finances could study in these schools. Among these measures, other than the Lampari Kingdom's subsidies, there was also a method similar to the New Flyer's Baron Ricto Magic Academy and Banta City's Magic Machine Industry Training School. The students could sign a contract with a company, letting those companies pay their tuition fees and living expenses. The requirement was that they had to work for a company after graduating. Although this rule wasn't limited to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, rather it was something that the students were willing to sign with any magic machine company. Everyone knew that under the same conditions, any student would choose the Frestec Chamber of Commerce first. The other companies of the Lampari Kingdom were clearly aware of this. After the kingdom's parliament announced this cooperation, there were over 30 companies that expressed through the newspapers that they were willing to give preferential conditions to the students of these magic machine industry training schools. There were even some companies that clearly stated their prices, giving clear amounts of gold coins to show their sincerity. It could be said that before these 17 magic machine industry training schools were opened, the competition for students that didn't even exist was already in full swing. There was no other way, who told the New Flyers chairman Sue to say something before. In the magic machine industry era, technology is the most important thing and talent is everything. In order to compete for these future talents, it wasn't a big deal to spend a bit more. The third project wasn't just limited to the cooperation between the New Flyer and the Lampari Kingdom. To be honest, this project was led by the Lampari Kingdom and the main partner was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. This project was a very large road project. According to the part of the plan announced by the Lampari Kingdom's parliament in the Lampari Weekly, the Lampari Kingdom would be upgrading the roads in the kingdom in the next 5 years. Apart from continuing to pave new roads so that every small town in the kingdom could be connected by roads, there was also a need to upgrade the existing roads. With the development of the Lampari Kingdom, the normal 2-lane roads couldn't cope with the increasing demand for transportation anymore. The main roads connecting Banta City and Anvilmar City, as well as the Northeast Province, had frequent traffic jams, which seriously affected the efficiency of transportation. So the Lampari Kingdom's parliament, under the orders of Her Majesty Seveni, after careful research, they decided to upgrade the roads in the kingdom. They would double the width of the main roads, becoming 4 lanes. Even the road connecting Banta City and Anvilmar City would become an exaggerated 8 lanes. The total investment for this project was estimated to be 35 million gold coins. Even if the Lampari Kingdom's revenue was increasing year after year, even surpassing 10 million gold coins last year, they couldn't handle this kind of shocking expenditure. So most of the investment for this project fell into the various provinces and cities of the kingdom. The main reason why the road between Banta City and Anvilmar City would become an astonishing 8 lanes was because Banta City had money. As for New Flyer's role in this project, it was mainly to provide various materials and construction magic machines. Therefore, New Flyer announced a joint venture with the Lampari Kingdom, building 3 cement factories and 1 construction magic machine factory in the Lampari Kingdom, making it easier to produce materials. According to the information released by the Lampari Kingdom's parliament, these 3 cement factories were all controlled by the Lampari Kingdom, so they had absolute control over them. This meant that these 3 cement factories belonged to the Lampari Kingdom, so New Flyer couldn't really influence them. As for the other construction magic machine factory, the parliament didn't reveal any information about it. This made many people's imaginations run wild. If this construction magic machine factory was completely controlled by the Lampari Kingdom, didn't that mean that New Flyer had already transferred the construction magic machine technology to the Lampari Kingdom? Although New Flyer had been very generous in transferring technology to the outside world, it was limited to household magic machines. If it was as people guessed, this would be the first time they transferred the production magic machine technology. Didn't this mean that New Flyer was finally planning on releasing magic machine technology outside of household magic machines? Thinking of this possibility, there were countless people who were ready to move. Chapter 785. Hey, there's no problem if you want the technology, but before you want it, you have to see if you're qualified or not, right? Sue gave a cold laugh as he threw the letters in his hand to the side. Cruz, next time you have these things, you can burn them yourself. Don't give them to me. These letters came from the companies of the Lampuri Kingdom, and they all had the same content. They were all interested in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's production magic machine technology, hoping that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce could transfer the technology to them. These companies included magic machine companies and 2 companies that didn't participate in the magic machine industry before. It showed that as the magic machine industry became more and more influential in the Lampari Kingdom and the surrounding countries, the traditional companies couldn't sit still. Chairman Cruz, sitting in front of Sue, looked at the letters that Sue threw on the table and revealed an awkward smile. These letters were from the chairman of these companies who asked him to give them to Sue, but he never thought that Sue would disdain them like this. After thinking for a bit, Chairman Cruz asked, then, Sue, what kind of company do you think is qualified to obtain the technology for your magic machines? For example, is our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce enough? What? You're finally interested in entering this industry? Sue asked back. No, I'm not interested. Chairman Cruz shook his head. I'm just asking, do you think our company is qualified? Not enough. Sue didn't hesitate to give a negative answer. Your company doesn't have a problem in terms of funds, but you're too weak in terms of technology. Even if I gave you the technology for free, you wouldn't know what to do with it. It's not that bad. Chairman Cruz was a bit unconvinced. As long as you're willing to give us enough technology, as long as I invest more, I'll definitely be able to grasp it. Alright, I'll give you the technology for the magic mixer that your company often uses. Then I'll tell you that you need to invest at least 3 million gold coins and at least 2 years to grasp the basic. Are you willing to accept this? If it's only 3 million gold coins and 2 years, it's not impossible. Chairman Cruz looked at Sue and laughed. Over the years, you've earned over 1.5 million gold coins from me on the magic mixer, right? In the future, our Chamber of Commerce will have many uses for these things. If we can make them ourselves, we can save a lot of money. Are you sure? Sue looked at him with a faint smile. President Cruz was taken aback. Then, he waved his hand with an ugly expression and said, Forget it. I'll just buy it from your son. The magic machines that your new flyer makes will definitely be stronger than what others can make and will be better than what I can research. Why should I spend that much money and time on this kind of thankless thing? Sue shook his head and said with a sigh, It's fine if you think like this, but if everyone else thinks like this, I'll be too disappointed. Oh, I understand. You still want to promote the magic machine industry, right? Chairman Cruz said. I've cooperated with the Lampari Kingdom and the Drake Duchy to open agricultural magic machine factories and construction magic machine factories, so I've already expressed my intention to make this technology public. But up to now, the ones that have come to me are all this kind of stuff. Those companies that I like haven't made a move at all. It really makes me disappointed. Sue said with a sigh. I feel that. It's not that they can't see this and they definitely want this technology, but Sue, have you ever thought that those companies that you like, your best one should be the Ireland Chamber of Commerce, right? You often praise them for their innovations in technology in front of me. Yes, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce has always been willing to invest in technological research. Although I don't like Kovac, I have to admit that he's a business genius. He was the one who helped the Ireland Chamber of Commerce become the largest chamber of commerce in the magic machine component industry. Look, even if the Ireland Chamber of Commerce is the boss of the component industry, have you ever thought about how much money the Ireland Chamber of Commerce has? Chairman Cruz asked. This. Freeman told me last time that their company earned over 300,000 gold coins last year. I think that it should be a bit more. So that means that 300,000 gold coins is a lot for them, but if they want to buy the technology from your new flyer, it's far from enough. Chairman Cruz honestly said. Not to mention that after they obtain the technology, they need to invest a large amount of money and manpower to digest it. You just told me that it would take at least 3 million gold coins and at least 2 years to make a magic mixer, but for a small company like theirs, it would be even more. Do you think they can handle it? Sue blinked and was speechless for a while. Sue, I've found that you have a very big problem, Chairman Cruz said with a serious expression. Sue looked at him with a bit of doubt. You seem to have never trusted those old companies. Even for our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, if it wasn't for the fact that I've worked with you the longest, you wouldn't trust us that much. That's why when you're looking for partners, you often subconsciously exclude the old companies. Sue thought for a bit before nodding. I know that you think that magic machines are a new industry and it's easier for those new companies to accept it. But Sue, now isn't the time when your new flyer just appeared and people still don't know what magic machines are. Now that your new flyer has become one of the strongest companies in the surrounding countries, everyone has already approved of magic machines. You don't need to worry as much as you did in the beginning. Compared to those new small chambers of commerce, the strength of the established chambers of commerce is undoubtedly much stronger. If you seek to cooperate with them, the assistance you will receive and the possibility of success will naturally be much greater. Sue knit his brows and thought for a bit before slowly letting out a sigh. Cruz, you're right. I was influenced by my own thinking and almost went down the wrong path. Thank you for reminding me. Sue lowered his head to pick up the letters he threw on the table and seriously looked at them before putting them away. Seeing him do this, President Cruz let out a sigh of relief. He thought that he had finally convinced Sue. Now he could finally report back to his old friends. Sue suddenly glanced at President Cruz and asked, after talking for so long, Cruz, your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce is also an old company. Are you really not interested in magic machines? No. Cruz waved his hand and answered with unusual firmness. I've always believed in one principle. If you want to succeed in something, you have to be focused. Our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce has always been in the construction industry and will always be in this industry. Besides, where do I have the time to think about it? You've just given me a huge task that's going to tire me to death. Sue smiled faintly. Of course it's tiring, but it's too much to call it a task. If this plan is completed, there is no need to mention how many gold coins your Omrit Chamber of Commerce will earn. The more important thing is that I am certain that your Omrit Chamber of Commerce will become a famous company on the Signs continent. Haven't you always dreamed of establishing the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce as a first-class company in the Signs? Now is the perfect opportunity. President Cruz rolled his eyes. Before realizing my dream, I should pray that I won't die of exhaustion. Okay, instead of complaining over there, it's better to come over and discuss with me how to implement this plan. You've been sitting for half an hour, you should rest enough. Sue waved at President Cruz and came over to the huge map hanging on the wall. President Cruz could only roll his eyes and come over. The map on the wall was a map of the signs that Sue had specially placed in the living room of his manor. Whether it was the lines or the markings on it, it was much clearer than normal maps, and one could even find the names of the small villages on it. But on this map, there were 3 very conspicuous thick red lines that came from the bottom left corner, almost running through the entire map. Chairman Cruz's gaze swept across, and he raised his hand and fixed it on the red line at the top. This red line started at the main base of the new flyer in the Principality of Constantine. After it came out, it went north through the Black Rice Wasteland before turning northeast into the Lampari Kingdom. It passed through Banta City and Anvilmar City before leaving Seoul City and entering the Drake Duchy. Then it continued northeast, passing through the Frankish Kingdom before finally entering the Mala Empire. There were no more signs in the Mala Empire, which meant that this road would stop here for now. This road to the Mala Empire is easy to deal with since the Lampari Kingdom and the Drake Duchy are easy to deal with. The Frankish Kingdom has a good cooperation with your new flyer, so it shouldn't be a problem to convince them. But the other 2 roads will be very difficult. President Cruz's finger moved to the 2 red lines that were a bit lower. The red line in the middle came from the main base of the new flyer, but it went east into the Kingdom of Ruhr before turning north into the Mirando Duchy. Then it went east into the Norton Duchy before turning northeast into the Kanla Empire. Let's talk about the middle one. The Kingdom of Ruhr and the Mirando Duchy aren't a problem. Although the Norton Duchy has always been at odds with your new flyer, it is only a small duchy, so it shouldn't be a problem to deal with them. But the Kanla Empire's situation is very complicated. Not mentioning anything else, you had that Ambassador Hakkinen try to build the first road after he came back, and he managed to do it. But our company has been building it for over a year, and this road, that is less than 500 kilometers in length, has never been finished. Do you know why? Chapter 786. Seeing Chairman Cruz's indignant face, Sue could only give a bitter smile. When Ambassador Hakkinen obtained the approval to build the road, Sue was very happy. He felt that he had finally knocked on the doors of the Kanla Empire, letting them realize the convenience of the road. It would affect the Kanla Empire just like it did the Lampari Kingdom. However, he never would have thought that when the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was laying down the road in the Kanla Empire's southwest province, they would encounter all kinds of strange obstructions. The main problem was that the efficiency of the officials in the southwest province of the Kanla Empire was very low. It took them a long time just to take a small piece of land, causing the construction period to be greatly delayed. Moreover, the corruption of these officials was very serious. According to Chairman Cruz, in just the first half-year, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had to pay an extra 300,000 gold coins, which was almost half of the estimated cost of this road. Moreover, most of the actual investment for this road came from the new flyer and a small part came from the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. The Kanla Empire didn't pay a single copper coin, but in the end they had to enjoy all the benefits of this road. For the new flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, this was a very bad business. This made Chairman Cruz feel dissatisfied with the Kanla Empire. However, this road was already half finished and it had a great significance, so no matter how dissatisfied he was, he could only bite the bullet and continue. Sue thought about it before helplessly patting Chairman Cruz's shoulder and comforting him. After all, this is the first road, endure it for now. As long as this road is finished, I don't believe that the Kanla Empire won't discover the benefits this road brings them. As long as they want to continue building roads in the future, they will definitely look for your Chamber of Commerce. At that time, you can get back at them for all the grievances you have suffered on this road. President Cruz coldly snorted, I'm not as optimistic as you. In my opinion, the Kanla Empire is rotten from the bones to the skin. Even if they can recognize the convenience brought by the roads, we may not be able to reap any benefits in the end. Sui narrowed his eyes slightly as a sneer flashed across the corner of his mouth. At that time, I'm afraid it won't be up to them to choose. President Cruz looked at Sui in surprise. He sensed a dangerous aura from Sui's words, but where did this aura come from? The Kanla Empire was one of the two largest empires in the signs. Sui couldn't possibly be so bold as to think of doing something to the Kanla Empire, right? Sui waved his hand and stopped this topic. He stretched out his finger and tapped on the red line at the bottom. Actually, compared to the road that runs through the Kanla Empire, I feel that this road that connects the southernmost part of the continent will be much more difficult. Cruz, do you feel confident? Cruz glanced at the red line that extended from the Principality of Constantine, along the southern part of the signs on the map, near the edge of the Endless Sea, all the way to the east, and finally reached the east coast of the continent with a bitter smile. I say, Sui, I thought that the guy from the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom was just imagining things. I didn't think that you would actually take it seriously. Did you forget what I said last time? In theory, it is completely possible to build a road that runs through the east and west of the continent, but the biggest problem is that the amount of money needed is too large. Didn't I calculate with you last time? If you want to build this road, the total investment will exceed 50 million gold coins. How much money is that? Even if we sell our 2 chambers of commerce, we won't be able to take out that much money. That's why I said last time that I don't expect this project to be completed in 1 or 2 years. Sui shrugged. And the 3 roads that I'm planning to run through the continent can't be completed in a short period of time. If I have to prioritize, I hope to build this road first. Seeing Sui's finger tap on the red line at the top, President Cruz let out a sigh of relief. Looks like you haven't really gone crazy. That's right, compared to other roads, this road has the most hope of being completed. Whether it is the Principality of Constantine, the Lampari Kingdom, or the Drake Duchy, they all have a road network. We only need to pave the road in the Fok Kingdom. As for the Mal Empire, it depends on the cooperation between you and the Mal Empire. Looking at President Cruz's questioning gaze, Sui smiled and nodded. I have confidence in Marquis of Southgard. If nothing unexpected happens, there should be a message from him soon. I hope so. After discussing the traffic routes of the 3 plans for a while, Chairman Cruz said goodbye to Zhang Tai and left. After Sui sent him off, he returned to the map and stared at it for a long time. Then he took out a pen and tapped on the new Flight Commerce main base. It extended westward and drew a blue line into the endless ocean, then southward, bypassing the Principality of Constantine, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the southern waters of the Kanla Empire. Finally, it connected to the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom on the east coast. The port of the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom had been built for more than 5 months. During this time, the New Flyers transport fleet could make a round trip once a month. So far, they had completed 5 successful cargo shipments and officially established a sea transportation route connecting the southwest and southeast coasts of Signs. It was just too difficult to build the Southern Signs Road that President Cruz had said was impossible. So currently, the most reliable transport route connecting the east and west coasts of the continent was this sea route. Through these 5 shipments, the New Flyer had sent large amounts of people and materials to the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. They had already successfully built the cement processing factory and steel mill in the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. According to the plan, these factories would be finished by the beginning of next year. When that time came, with the manpower that the New Flyer would invest, they would be able to build a production base in the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. They would strive to promote magic machines in the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. Before this production base was built, the New Flyer hadn't been idle. They had sent large amounts of agricultural and engineering magic machines to the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom through their transport fleet, as well as the popular household magic machines. Accordingly, the new flyer had obtained large amounts of local herbs and animal furs from the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom. After shipping them back to the Principality of Constantine and selling them to the surrounding countries, they had earned a large amount. In just 5 shipments, the new flyer had earned a large profit of over 2 million gold coins. So among the high-level members of the new flyer, they had already called this sea transport route the Golden Sea Route. Looking over the map, Sui put his pen on the new flight commerce main base and drew another line to the west into the endless seas. This time, he drew this line to the north, passing through the Black Rice Wasteland, the Sak Kingdom's western seas, and then the Alas Kingdom in the northeast corner of the continent, entering the northern seas of the continent. But when he drew this line, Sui paused before stopping and slightly knitting his brows. Although Sui had never been to the northernmost country of the Signs continent, according to the records of various books, the northernmost part of the continent was very cold in winter. Even the endless seas were covered in a thick layer of ice that one couldn't see the end of, so it was impossible to sail on the sea. So this sea route couldn't be as smooth as the southern sea route. After thinking about it, Suyi's hand moved slightly and drew a line to the east of the northern seas, finally stopping at the northernmost part of the continent. This was the northern coast of the Mala Empire, so if he could expand the sea route here, he could establish a sea route to the Mala Empire. There was no doubt that it would be more convenient to increase the connection between the new flyer and the Mala Empire. After looking over the Mala Empire's vast territory on the map, Sui turned to the northeast corner of the continent. He drew another line from the northern coast of the Mala Empire to the east, reaching the northeast corner of the continent before continuing south, finally entering the southeast corner of the Nozdormu Business Union Kingdom, connecting it to the southern sea route. Like this, it was equal to using a blue sea route to surround the entire continent. In theory, the new flyer could transport its goods to any of the coastal countries on the continent just by relying on sea transport. Of course, in reality, most of the countries on the Signs weren't coastal at all. If he wanted to promote the new flyer's products to every inch of land on the continent, it was far from enough to rely on sea transport. And this was the main reason why Sui wanted to lay down 3 transport routes that connected the entire continent. However, it was too difficult to lay down these 3 roads. Apart from the most crucial problem of funding, the biggest obstacle was actually the attitude of the other countries. Sui was confident that he could get the Fok Kingdom to agree to the northernmost route, but he wasn't completely sure about the Mala Empire's attitude towards this matter. And with the current performance of the Kanla Empire, the prospects of the Kanla Empire in the middle weren't optimistic. Could it be that this huge empire is really as rotten as Cruz said? Sui frowned as he looked at the Kanla Empire on the map, which had a territory much larger than the Mala Empire, and couldn't help but sigh softly. At this moment, a series of light footsteps suddenly sounded outside the door, waking Sui up. He turned around and saw Teresa's little head poking in from outside the door with a cautious expression on her face. Seeing that Sui happened to look over, Teresa shrank back like a frightened rabbit. After a while, she hesitantly reappeared. Sui narrowed his eyes and sized her up. He smiled and said, "Come in." Chapter 787. Teresa slowly came in like a scared little rabbit. She looked at Sui and after hesitating a bit, she asked in a soft voice, "Sir Chairman, do you have time now?" What is it?" Sui asked back. If you have time, can you come to the research center to take a look? Master Camby and the others. They're about to fight." "Ha!" Sui thought that a person like Teresa would come looking for him for something else, but he never thought that she would talk about something like this. "Camby and the others are about to fight? With who?" "Why?" Sui asked with a look of surprise. "With Master Donorman and Master Bordeaux." Teresa lowered her head and replied. Teresa lowered her head, They were arguing about the magic cannon and no one was willing to give up, so they're arguing very fiercely. When I left, they almost made a move. Those fellows really are. Sui helplessly shook his head. Camby and the other dwarves worked seriously, had excellent skills, and weren't afraid of working hard. Moreover, they were very passionate about their research, so they could be considered perfect researchers. But they all had a common problem, which was that they all had the fiery temper of the dwarves. This fiery temper was fine normally, but it was hard to avoid having different opinions during the research process. Therefore, when they argued, it was easy to explode. Because of this, the dwarven engineers of the New Flyers Magic Machine Development Center had argued quite a bit before, even directly fighting. Although they were very careful and didn't cause any fatal injuries, forgetting about it after fighting, so it didn't affect their cooperation. However, Sui had to clean up after them each time, which was a very troublesome matter. "Alright, I'll be right there." Sui looked around and tidied up a bit before having Teresa leave with him. When they came out of the hall, Teresa looked at the map hanging on the wall and a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Sui noticed her gaze and just revealed a smile. He didn't say anything as he quickly walked out. The Magic Machine Development Center was a bit far from Sui's private manor. If it was just Sui alone, he could directly use the transport magic to teleport over, but now that he had Teresa, he couldn't do this. So he brought Teresa to his magic sedan parked in the yard, and had her sit in it. When the two were in the magic sedan, Sui suddenly thought of a problem. "By the way, Teresa, how did you get here? And why are you the one looking for me? Where's Feimine? Why isn't she here?" The Feima that Sui mentioned was the manager of the New Flyers Magic Machine Development Center. She was mainly responsible for the various administrative matters of the Magic Machine Development Center and didn't participate in the development work. According to the engineers in the R&D Center, Feima was their nanny and housekeeper. When Camby's group quarreled, if they couldn't suppress it, it was Feima who came to ask Sui for help. Manager Feima's granddaughter was born yesterday, so she took a few days off. Teresa replied. "Oh, I remember now." Sui nodded before looking at Teresa, waiting for her reply. Teresa was looked down by Sui and her face turned a bit red. She lowered her head again and after a while, she replied in a soft voice, "I saw that no one could stop Master Camby's group, so I thought that I should ask you for help. They are all very busy and I felt that I hadn't seen Sir Chairman in a long time, so I ran over." Seeing Teresa's ears turn red from shyness, Sui revealed a faint smile. He didn't ask anything else as he started the magic sedan and charged out of the manor. When the magic sedan was 2 kilometers away from the main road, Teresa slowly recovered. She looked up at Sui with a focused look. "What are you looking at?" Sui noticed her gaze and asked this with a smile. Teresa quickly turned her face to the side. "No. Nothing." Teresa didn't speak, but Sui took the initiative to ask. "Speaking of this, Teresa, you've been working in the military magic machine department of the Magic Machine Development Center for close to a year now, right? I still haven't asked you yet, how do you feel working during this time?" Hearing that Sui was concerned about her, Teresa revealed a sweet smile and replied, "Many thanks for Sir Chairman's concern. I've had a very fulfilling time during this time. The colleagues of the Development Center have been very good to me and care about me, so I've been very happy with them." "Is that so? I've heard Evita say that you often look for her to discuss military magic machine research. It seems like you're working very hard." A strange look that was hard to notice quickly appeared on Teresa's face as she said with a nod, I want to contribute more to the company, so I have to work harder. Chief Evita has been very good to me, she has helped me a lot. This is what she should do as the chief, so I've privately asked her to help you a bit more." Sui suddenly gave a sigh, "But Teresa, you want to develop military magic machines this much. Could it be that it's really because of your father, Viscount Doran Carrot? The smile on Teresa's face instantly disappeared. She lowered her head in silence for a bit before looking up again with a determined look on her face. Yes, Sir Chairman. My father and my entire family were destroyed by those despicable nobles of the Sac Kingdom. I am his only daughter, so I must take revenge for them. But have you ever thought of a problem? Even if you work hard to develop military magic machines, you might not be able to use them against the nobles of the Sac Kingdom. Actually, the military magic machines that you personally developed might be sent to the nobles of the Sac Kingdom that you hate. Sui said. Teresa was stunned. She couldn't help opening her eyes wide as she asked Sui with a look of disbelief, Sir Chairman, are you joking? Could it be that you're planning on selling military magic machines to the Sac Kingdom? Haven't you always hated the Sac Kingdom? I just don't like the Sac Kingdom because they worked with Duke Wine to attack our company. But if it's hatred, that isn't enough. In the end, I am a merchant and our new flyer is a company. As long as the conditions are right, we can sell our products to anyone, don't you think? Teresa looked at Sui in a daze for a while as complicated emotions filled her eyes. Finally she gritted her teeth and lowered her head again, not saying a thing. Sui looked at her and his lips curled into a smile of deep meaning as he continued to ask, Are you very disappointed? Teresa slowly shook her head and remained silent. Teresa, I understand your feelings and sympathize with your situation. But you have to understand that I am the new Flyers chairman. I have to consider the benefits of the company. If working with the Sac Kingdom can bring enough benefits to the new Flyer, I don't mind letting go of the grudge between us. As for your personal wishes, although it is heartless to say this, I can only say that it isn't important. Teresa lowered her head even more, finally burying her head in her knees. Her legs were bent and her hands were wrapped around them. Her back was slightly trembling as she let out soft sobs. Sui looked at her with a strange smile on his lips, but his voice became even gentler as he said in a soft voice, Actually, Teresa, don't you think that the one you want to take revenge on is wrong? The one who persecuted your father Viscount Doran Carlo and your family isn't the entire Sac Kingdom, it's just Count Oziel, right? Why do you have to target the entire Sac Kingdom? Teresa suddenly looked up with tears in her eyes, but the surprise in her eyes couldn't be hidden at all. Sir Chairman, you know? Sui gave a shrug. Of course, after hearing about what happened to you, I asked people to investigate this matter. According to the report, your father and family were framed by Count Oziel, so of course the crime of treason was fake. Actually, in the Sac Kingdom, your father has already been rehabilitated and his reputation has been restored. You've been here for several years, so you don't know about this. Teresa trembled and her expression changed several times before she asked in a trembling voice, Sir Chairman, since you already knew, why didn't you tell me? I only confirmed this last month, and because I was busy, I never had a chance to tell you, Sui said with a shrug. Teresa looked at Sui with a helpless look. Sui said with a sigh, Teresa, actually it doesn't matter if you want to return to the Sac Kingdom now. Your father's reputation has been restored and Count Oziel, who persecuted your father and family, has been imprisoned by the Sac Kingdom, so you can take over your father's title after you go back and live a normal life in your hometown. Are you willing to go back? Teresa was stunned for a moment before she slowly shook her head. No. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that place that hurts me. Teresa suddenly trembled after saying this. She looked at Sui and anxiously asked, Sir Chairman, are you chasing me away? Of course not. Sui waved his hand. If you're willing, you can stay here for as long as you want. Teresa let out a sigh of relief and her body relaxed. She lowered her head to think for a bit before looking up and seriously looking at Sui with a determined look. Sir Chairman, There was a sharp turn in front and Sue-yi was focused on driving, so he didn't turn to look at her. But after a while, he suddenly felt his right hand being grabbed by a pair of soft hands. It was raised up and pressed down on something soft. Gee! The sound of brakes suddenly rang out and spread far and wide. Chapter 788. The Sack Kingdom wants to buy military magic machines from us? Kennard looked at Sue-yi with a confused look. Sir Chairman, could it be that the Sack Kingdom contacted you in private? No, this is just my guess. Sue-yi shook his head. Guess? Kennard knit his brows. First, let's not talk about how you guessed this. Even if the Sack Kingdom really made this request, could it be that you're really planning on selling the military magic machines to them? Why not? Sue-yi said with a smile. Our company's production of military magic machines can already satisfy the needs of the Lampari Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr, so in order to expand the market, of course we need to find new buyers, right? But the Sack Kingdom is our Lampari Kingdom's enemy, not to mention that they worked with Count Wine to attack our company. Could it be that you don't mind at all? Kennard looked at Sue-yi, feeling very strange. With his understanding of Sue-yi, he knew that Sue-yi wasn't a merchant who only cared about money, not caring about anything else for benefit. The Sack Kingdom and the Lampari Kingdom were enemies, so because the new flyer had always supported the Lampari Kingdom, they shouldn't support the Sack Kingdom. Otherwise, they would be stepping on two boats. Moreover, when the Sack Kingdom worked with Count Wine to attack the new flyer, the situation was very dangerous. If it wasn't for Sue-yi leading the new flyer guards to counterattack, the new flyer might have suffered heavy losses. With Sue-yi's personality, not fighting back against the Sack Kingdom was already because they weren't strong enough. How could he take the initiative to sell the military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom and strengthen the Sack Kingdom? Seeing Kennard, who didn't hide his doubt, Sue-yi patted his shoulder with a smile. Relax, this decision was made after discussing it with Her Majesty Seveni last time. It was approved and supported by the Lampari Kingdom, so you don't need to worry that the Lampari Kingdom will blame our company for this. This, Kennard was even more doubtful. New flyer selling military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom was actually supported by Her Majesty Seveni? Her Majesty. Just what was she thinking? Don't think too much, you just need to deal with it normally. Sue-yi said. If nothing unexpected happens, the Sack Kingdom will soon send someone to contact us and make a request to buy military magic machines. Because I'll be going on a trip in a few days, I'll leave this matter to you. You just need to remember a few things. Hearing Sue-yi talk about business, Kennard's expression immediately became serious. Sir Chairman, please give your orders. First, we can sell military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom, but we can't sell any kind of military magic machines to them. Of course. Kennard nodded in agreement. Even for the Lampari Kingdom, we haven't sold the most advanced military magic machines to them. Of course, there are more restrictions on the Sack Kingdom. As for what to sell to them, you'll listen to Chief Evita's arrangements. Chief Evita? Kennard was surprised again. Although Chief Evita was the chief of the Academy of Magic and was in charge of all the magic machine research for the company, she wasn't that involved in military magic machines. Moreover, she rarely participated in the company's decisions, so why did Sir Chairman put her in charge this time? But Sue-yi didn't explain, so Kennard naturally couldn't ask. Second, we can't sell too many military magic machines to the Sack Kingdom the first time. It can't exceed 1 million gold coins. Isn't that a bit too little? Kennard couldn't help asking. 1 million gold coins can't buy that many military magic machines. It can't even equip an entire regiment. I'm afraid the Sack Kingdom won't agree. That isn't up to them. It's already good that we're willing to sell to them. Do they have the right to choose? If they want to buy, then buy. If they don't want to, then forget it. Sue-yi gave a cold snort. In short, when you discuss with them, just set this number. As for how to arrange it, you'll have to discuss it with Chief Evita. Kennard couldn't help smiling. Sir Chairman's words really were domineering. But the military magic machines could only be made by New Flyer, so even if Sir Chairman was domineering, the Sack Kingdom could only pinch their noses and accept it. Third, only sell the products, not the technology. If the Sack Kingdom asks for the military magic machine technology, firmly reject them and don't give them any room to discuss. Kennard looked at Sue-Yi in confusion, thinking that this was natural. Not to mention the Sack Kingdom, even the Lampuri Kingdom that was the closest to the Frestek Chamber of Commerce. The Frestek Chamber of Commerce had only given them the lowest-level military magic machine manufacturing technology. The other technology was also tightly sealed, so how could they reveal it to the Sack Kingdom? This time Sue-Yi gave an explanation, but this explanation shocked Kennard. Don't be surprised by my deliberate request this time. Maybe after a while we might really have to discuss technical issues with them. Hashtag. After explaining everything to Kennard, Sue-Yi left the CEO's office and headed to the Academy of Magic's headquarters. When he came to the door of the chief's private lab, it was like history repeating itself. The door was suddenly opened and Teresa came out. The two looked at each other and were both stunned. After a while, there was a clear blush that covered Teresa's face, not even letting go of her neck. Sue-Yi's face was also a bit red and he looked a bit awkward. His right hand that was at his waist couldn't help twitching, as if he was still thinking about the softness he had touched the night before. What surprised Sue-Yi was that although Teresa's neck was red, she didn't run away like a normal girl. Rather, she forced herself to look up and her body couldn't help trembling, but she still looked at Sue-Yi and didn't look away. After looking at each other like this for a while, Teresa pursed her red lips and said in a low voice, "Sir Chairman, have you considered it?" Sue-Yi was stunned, not knowing how to respond for a while. Teresa had already asked this question the night before and he couldn't answer back then. Now that 2 days had passed, he still couldn't find an answer. Actually, if it were any other man, such as Teresa, who was extremely beautiful and had a delicate temperament, who would always make people want to protect her, he would probably have agreed long ago. But Sue-Yi wasn't like this. He knew much more about Teresa than Teresa thought. After thinking for a bit, Sue-Yi gave a sigh and shook his head. "Sorry, Teresa, I haven't thought about it yet." Teresa's expression wasn't that disappointed, she just gave a slight nod and said in a low voice, "All right, Sir Chairman, I will wait for you to think about it." After saying this, she even revealed a sweet smile to Sue-Yi before passing by him. Watching her leave, Sue-Yi gave a bitter laugh and turned to head back into the lab. "Sir Chairman, actually I've always felt that you don't need to go through all this trouble." Evita looked at Sue-Yi who came in and after hesitating a bit, she said, "As long as you keep blocking the Sack Kingdom and don't sell them any military magic machines, I think that not long after, the Lampari Kingdom will be far stronger and can easily defeat the Sack Kingdom. Why do you need to prepare all these things? Things aren't as simple as you think." Sue-Yi shook his head. "You don't know this, but I've received information from the Lampari Kingdom a long time ago. It says that the Lampari Kingdom has been secretly smuggling military magic machines and their target is the Sack Kingdom. It's just a small part of the smuggling, it shouldn't be a problem, right?" Evita said, "If you want to equip the Sack Kingdom's army, it isn't realistic to rely on smuggling. Of course it isn't possible to rely on smuggling, but it isn't a problem to let the Sack Kingdom obtain the military magic machines produced by our company and then use them for research." Evita was stunned. "You mean, the Sack Kingdom is studying the military magic machines of our company and grasping the technology related to the military magic machines?" "Right, there is a special term for this, it's called reverse engineering." Sue-Yi thought of something fun and he couldn't help revealing a smile. "Evita, you should be clear that the low-end military magic machines produced by our company don't have that much technology, so it's very easy to grasp the principles behind them. So even if we don't sell it to them, I believe that the SAC Kingdom will be able to develop it themselves through reverse engineering. I don't think so. Evita shook her head. Perhaps the principles behind our company's low-end military magic machines are very simple, but even if you know the principles, it's very hard to make the same ones. This is because not only does it require high-quality steel and other materials, it also requires very fine and precise processing. Like you said before, this requires a complete magic machine industry to support it. The SAC Kingdom can't even make a single screw right now, so how can they copy the military magic machines? Your words are very reasonable, but if the SAC Kingdom doesn't care about the cost of their research, they might not be able to make the same military magic machines, but they should be able to make a lower quality one. As for the screw you mentioned, in the magic machine project that our company signed with the SAC Kingdom before, we have already designed a few, so they will have a foundation in technology soon. Evita slightly knit her brows. Sir Chairman, you should have already expected this, so why did you still do this? Because I did it on purpose. Sui laughed. Evita gave a laugh. Instead of letting the SAC Kingdom secretly develop it, it's better for me to take the initiative to help them. That way it's easier for them to fall under my control, right? Evita looked at Sui with sparkling eyes before suddenly saying, Sir Chairman, do you also include Teresa? Sui was stunned. After thinking about it, he found that no matter what he said, it wouldn't be good. He could only give an awkward smile and turn his face away. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.